Did they dial her in?
Oh, they might not have dialed her back yet.
Because we had to hang up on her to bring her. It's so portable.
Yeah, and that reminds Sarah to always.
Sorry.
Deirdre?
Thanks. Can you hear us? Deirdre?
Hi, Sarah.
Okay, good. We are now at roll call.
Present?
Closed session.
Sorry.
Councilmember O'Neill. Here. Councilmember Beer.
Here.
Councilmember Beckmeyer. Here. Mayor Pro Tem Martin.
Present remotely?
Mayor Vaterlaus.
Here. Okay, and now I will lead us in the pledge to the flag.
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And do we have a closed session report?
No reportable action.
Thank you. Next, we have a proclamation. Ray Wolfgramm, San Mateo County Age-Friendly Cities Program, and it will be presented by Cynthia Nakayama. And is Cynthia here to come up and present?
Proclamation first.
Mayor Vaterlaus, the first is the proclamation.
Oh, they're two
to
different.
Mr. Wolfgramm.
Sorry.
They're two separate presentations. Yes.
Okay, you guys, I'm new. I'm going to make mistakes. Okay, the first item, I'm sorry, is the proclamation. Congratulations and best wishes to Ralph Wolfgramm. Whereas Ralph Wolfgramm has retired from a distinguished public service center career as plant operator 2 at the Clerk Creek Water Recycling Plant that has included 29 years and 7 months of service to the city of Pacifica. Wow. And whereas Raymond Wolfgramm was hired in 1989 to work for the Wastewater Department, beginning his career at the Sharp Park Wastewater Treatment Plant as an operator in training, then worked his way through the ranks from Operator 1 to Operator 2 at the Clerk Creek Water Recycling Plant. And whereas Raymond Wolfgramm is known by his colleagues as Grade 9 Ray because besides having attained the highest wastewater treatment plant operator certificate of Grade V, he also carries the highest collection system maintenance certificate of Grade 4. And whereas Ray Wolfgramm has given his heart and soul to a successful operation of the Clerk Creek Water Recycling Plant, and whereas Raymond Wolfgramm's benchmark and motto for success has been based on living life to the fullest, now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Pacifica hereby commends Raymond Wolfgramm for his years of dedicated service to the city as a significant force in the community, especially at the Clerk Creek Water Recycling Plant, and be it further resolved that the City Council of the City of Pacifica, on behalf of all of our citizens, extends our grateful thanks and appreciation to Raymond Wolfgramm and wishes him the best in his future endeavors, done this 14th day of January 2019. And if he'd like to come up and say a few words.
Hello, Council, and just very grateful to be here today. I have a lot of gratitude for the opportunity to work for the city for the last almost 30 years, and you know, you guys, this city has helped me provide the kind of life that I would want for my family, you know, and you know, be able to retire at, you know, at the age I am at 55 is just another great blessing I got from working for this city, and it's been just an honor and a privilege to be here for all these years. I used to work right below here. You know, the plant used to be right here, and so I'd see you guys here because a lot of times we work nights, especially in the winter, and I'd see you guys all gathering up here your Monday nights. But yeah, I'm just very grateful to be here and to receive this award. And like I said, it's really given me the kind of life that I'm very blessed to have, you know, and I know that's all greatly to do with the City of Pacifica, the security, and, you know, just to be able to have a job like this. You know, and I've worked with a great group of guys, you know, we're all kind of leaving now, you know, with Dave Grum and Dave Mothershed, and there's a couple of us old-timers left, but we're all kind of at that time now where we're leaving, and it's been, you know, it's been a family, you know. Like I said, I started here, and there was a core of us who started right here, and we, you know, been together for over 30, well, not quite 30 years, you know, and, you know, because we had a really tight-knit group of guys when, you know, working here, and that's because, you know, we really loved what we do, especially the new plant. You know, this place in the end was kind of a nightmare because it was falling down and was so old, but, you know, we got to experience the building of Clara Creek, and you know, the people there, including the new people there now today, we take a lot of pride in, you know, what we do over there. You know, we are a state-of-the-art treatment plant, and we have some of the highest, you know, restrictions on what we can discharge, because we discharge into an, you know, a very sensitive, you know, creek, and we almost have an immaculate record. I mean, we very rarely have we even violated, and you know, and it's been great to be part of that and with those group of guys. And like I said, these new guys that are stepping in, I feel they're going to fill the shoes, and they're you know, they have that passion, you know, because what we do makes a big difference, you know, because if we don't do our job right, there's going to be a lot of problems in the city, you know, and it's just been an honor working with a group of guys like that, and you know, for this city, which I love the City of Pacifica. I always will love the City of Pacifica. So thank you.
Thank you. Council comments?
First, I'd like to say thank you from the citizens of Pacifica for 30 years. From what you're saying, I guess there were 30 wonderful years. You know, because that's what's great about some of the civil service jobs is the people know all the nuts, the bolts, and the idiosyncrasies and the personalities of the equipment and the people that they're working with. So I just wanted to say thank you. Never had much interaction with you, but thank you very much for doing the job you did.
You.
Yeah, thank you so much, and I really appreciate your passion. It was really nice to hear you describe all of your experiences here with the city, so thank you. Thank you so much for your service.
You.
I'd just like to add, thank you for recognizing.
That one's broken. You gotta use this one.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you very much for recognizing the city as your employer. Sometimes cities aren't thought of as the greatest of employers, and it's really wonderful for me to hear how good an experience you had working here. And thank you for all you did.
Yep, you're welcome.
And thank you very much. 30 years is a long time to do anything. Thank you. We appreciate it. And we'll come down and take a picture.
You're so young.
If you want a picture.
There should be a handle underneath the chair.
Yeah, I'll get it in a minute. Okay, now we move on to the San Mateo County Age-Friendly Cities Program presented by Cynthia Nakayama.
Good evening. My name is Cynthia Nakayama. I'm a credentialed professional gerontologist and also an associate director with the Center for Age-Friendly Excellence, or as we like to call it, CAFE. It is wonderful to be here tonight to talk to the City Council, as well as all of you, to share some information about the Age-Friendly Initiative and to answer your questions at the end. I will also talk about what CAFE does. Although age-friendly means friendly for all ages, because our city's infrastructures were built for the lives and the lifestyles of those who are working, and with our growing older population, it is now very important to focus on the needs that are unmet for older people. By 2050, older adults will represent 22% of the world's population, and 2/3 of these will live within the city limits. This is critical information because this needs to be considered when we were doing our planning or making citywide decisions. When the World Health Organization realized this many years ago, they decided to do a worldwide study on older adults and their unmet needs. And the results of this study was to notice that there are 8 main areas where there are unmet needs for this population. And for those of you who have a brochure, and there are some in the back also, on the first page, there is a flower that shows what those domains are. And this covers housing, transportation, social participation and inclusion, and 5 other categories. All of these domains are important, but because of time, I will cover only a few. I will also give some examples from Santa Clara County. Right now, members of the World Health Organization's Age-Friendly Network total over 700 cities worldwide. CAFE is also one of, follows the model that falls under the WHO's guidelines. Los Altos and Los Altos Hills was led by our founder, Dr. Annabelle Pelham, to become the first cities in California to become age-friendly. And for gerontologists, we understand that ecological context matters. As we grow up, our environment impacts us. This becomes even more so as we grow older because our world becomes smaller. This impacts our health, our independence, and our satisfaction with our life. So here again are the 8 domains of livability. And I hope you can see those. So to focus on one of them, outdoor spaces and buildings, here are some examples of what would make the city age-friendly. And just to focus on a few, non-slip walkways. I think we all know that falling can be a life-changing experience for a senior. Also, if they want to go for a walk, it's important to have rest areas, so public seating is important. Easy-to-read signs where the lettering is big enough, and lighting as it gets darker at night. In Saratoga, they decided to do the 2020 Trees by 2020 challenge. Even though this is about a year old, this has already improved the environment by providing shade, a green environment, and also some beauty to the environment because many of the trees chosen by these families were flowering plants. mobility. Mobility means much more than driving. It means your city is walkable, that there are bike paths and areas, that transportation is accessible so that you can get where you want to and need to go. In other words, to be able to live your life. And I think we're all looking forward to self-driving cars once they become safe. In San Jose, California, they have put their Lincoln Avenue road on a road diet by removing one vehicle lane, adding a bike lane, and another left turn lane. When it comes to housing, we are all highly aware of the need for affordable and accessible housing. We hear about the homelessness issue every day. We see it and we hear about it. It is a part of our daily lives. Again, in San Jose, they are helping residents of mobile home parks to avoid displacement. Social participation is important, but it also can be covered in the next domain that I will talk about, so I'm going to combine them. This is important because, as you know, isolation is the new smoking. Ageism is alive and well. There is a quote that I heard a while back, and it continues with me today, and it goes something like this. The aged are the only group of people who are prejudiced against themselves. When my father was about to move into an assisted living facility, his first comments were, "These people are so old," even though he was around the same age. I'm sure from these chuckles that a lot of you have had the same experience. Because we want to know that we're not just a homogeneous group. We thrive on intergenerational environments, and that's what we want. When Los Altos did their focus groups on age-friendly, they realized that the older adults did not want to roll up the carpets at night and stay home. They wanted someplace to go to at night. So they started a pop-up nightclub called Club 55 and Up in their patio of the Costume Bank, which is once a month on the first Friday of every month between May and October. It's free admission, except for you just need to bring beer or wine or a beverage of your choice that is non-alcoholic. This has become very popular. People come to see it from other cities too. Morgan Hill liked the idea so much that they started their own called Prime Lifers, and they have it at the El Toro restaurant. Cafe has a project that addresses social isolation for seniors. It's called SIP, Senior Inclusion and Participation Project. They have partnered with their local block action teams who go out to visit seniors and see and notice if they are alone, have no one to help them or check in on them or take them to the events or appointments they need to go to. SIP provides events such as a tech event, creativity day, and brunches so that people can get out, get together, enjoy life, and learn. I was recently in Japan, and I'm always amazed at the quality of food in the convenience stores. But I didn't realize till I returned that they have a nationwide program that caters to older adults. Much like a Meals on Wheels program, they deliver to isolated seniors. They even have dietitians on staff for this is a 7-Eleven program, of course. Some stores even have designated areas for the seniors so that they can socialize and gather. Something to think about. There are so many different examples of the ways we can make our cities more age-friendly. I'm sure you would agree that any of these domains impact other domains. For instance, transportation impacts our ability to socialize as well as get health needs met. So age-friendly is an initial 5-year commitment. Planning is usually in year 1 to 2 and includes assessment. Once your city is accepted into the World Health Organization network, then your implementation stage begins through year 5. And at that point, there is a progress evaluation, and you need to send a report to WHO just to show your accomplishments and what progress you've made. As you can see, it's continual improvement. Definitely an assessment and improvement of your age friendliness. So as CAFE, we take you through the first steps. A task force is organized, an age-friendly task force is organized. We have a very strong membership in our task force here in Pacifica who are highly involved in forming the focus groups. And these focus groups provide the information and data in order to develop age-friendly projects to meet the needs of the older adults in this city. Once the city is ready to apply to WHO, the mayor signs a letter that goes along with the application. One step that you may want to consider as the city council is that you may want an additional presentation before the mayor signs the letter to find out what has been accomplished and what steps have been taken already. Once the mayor signs the application and the application is filled out, it is submitted to WHO. There are many benefits to becoming age-friendly, and some of them you might be surprised, including economic benefits. The greater Kansas City area did a couple of studies. I won't go into it now, but if you're interested in knowing more about these studies, you can ask me for copies. There is also a benefit since people who are considering moving to another city would consider if it's age-friendly because it makes it so attractive. Social capital has to do with attaining funding because you can say you're age-friendly. And of course, there's infrastructure innovations, and it helps promote healthy communities. Some of you may know that all Santa Clara counties are now age-friendly, as well as the county itself, and San Mateo is next. So what does this have to do with the city of Pacifica, and how does it tie in? Well, you already have some momentum since you have different projects going on already. Public Works has multiple projects, capital improvements that include housing, transportation, and ease of access. And of course, you have a very strong multi-purpose senior services program that provides transportation, congregate lunches, a Meals on Wheels delivery to homebound seniors, and many socialization activities. In addition, it is really the results of the focus groups that tie into your city. This is where you discover what is really needed by your city based on what is talked about by your residents and the professionals that work with them. And that is how you decide on the projects that will take you forward. So just to wrap up, an age-friendly city is inclusive and accessible urban environment that promotes active aging. It is a holistic model. And our mission as CAFE is to advance transformational change, to create a vibrant, sustainable, supportive, and inclusive community for all generations. Thank you, and if you have any questions.
Do the council members have any questions? Mary.
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. Thank you, Cynthia, for coming tonight. It's been a pleasure getting to know you. I'm helping on the task force, and it's been a really interesting process. And I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with all the focus groups. And just so everyone in the community understands, we're going to be recruiting for focus groups. There's going to be 4 of them, one for 80 years and older, one a general older adults, which is 55 and over, a group that's between the ages of 50 and 59, and then service providers. So if you have anyone who's interested in participating in a focus group, please let us know. But thank you so much, Cynthia.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we'll look forward to hearing more. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Next, we have the consent calendar. Does anybody on the council like to ask any questions or remove anything from the consent calendar?
I would.
Okay, Deirdre.
I just had a question about item 4.
Okay. So we also have a comment from the public on item 4. Does anybody have anything else?
I'll just move that we approve the consent calendar except for item 4.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
And we're going to do a verbal roll call.
Right, we'll do an oral roll call vote for the consent calendar. Vote Councilmember O'Neill,
Yes.
Councilmember Beer,
Yes.
Councilmember Beckmeyer,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martin,
Yes.
Mayor Vaterlaus.
Yes.
Consent calendar, excluding item 4, passes 5-0.
Thank you. Deirdre, would you like to go first
Sure.
and talk about item 4?
Yeah, sure. So it's just sort of a general statement and then a confirmation from city manager. Our budget is $24.5 million. The amendment is for $323.9 thousand, which puts us at about 22 million and change. So we're getting close, but I just wanted to confirm with you that we are still on budget for this project.
Yes, I believe that's correct, unless Deputy Director Sun heard any different numbers than, those were the numbers from the report, is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. That's right. That's
Okay,
correct.
thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, we have a member of the public that would like to speak on this, Chris Redfield.
Good evening, staff, council. Thank you for having me up here. I wanted to speak to item 4. My curiosity, obviously, Ms. Barton had the same thing. You're voting tonight, I believe, on a $324,000 addition. My curiosity is if that's into the contingencies or that's already factored into the existing budget, or are we into the contingencies yet? The last disbursements over the past 8 weeks, as far as the budget goes, are about $220,000, so a total of about $550,000 additional has been added to this in the past 8 weeks. I'm curious as if, and as I believe was just stated, we are still under budget, which I believe was $21.6 million. I heard 24, but I believe it was 21.6 was the original number with the 25% contingency. So I'm curious if we're into the contingency, if we're still essentially under budget or on budget. As far as the website goes, I haven't seen an update on that. I've seen the rain for rent tanks, which I believe is about 360,000 gallons at the Lindemar pump station. And I believe that is just a Band-Aid because the plant is not online as mandated by the state in January of 19. So I'm just curious if we can get an update from the city on that, because I know we were mandated by January of 19 to have no more capacity-related sewage discharges, or all heck will break loose, as we know. So that was it. I'm just curious if we can get an update from the city on the process, on the project right now, where it sits, where it stands, and I think some more public information on that. And as soon as we can get that done, that's probably one of the largest if not the largest public works project that the city has taken on. It's very important. We're going to be paying for that for a long time, so we want to make sure it's right and it's all done. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Would the city manager like to make a comment on that?
That's correct. The project is still under budget, and, we will continue to push out information about the status of the project and the timeline.
One of the questions was, have we gotten into the 25% contingency, or are we still in the budget?
I'm going to turn to Deputy Director Sun regarding the contingency amount.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council members. My name is Louis Sun, Deputy Director of Public Works, Wastewater. To answer the question, we are still within the budget. We had about 20% contingency for the construction, and we're still within budget. I believe we are starting to use some of that 20% contingency, but overall budget, we are still well under that.
Just for the public, is there any sort of time frame as to when it will be done, and maybe go into the fact that we do have the rain barrels there, and, just kind of overview for that?
Yes, the construction right now, the construction schedule is stating that will be completed around February 19th, 2019. But that's just the construction schedule, and it's a moving schedule. Our construction manager estimates that the completion of the entire project will likely take place sometime in April 2019. And the tanks will be removed once we can get the conveying piping system in place, which right now we're estimated to have this completed by the end of January.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that answers all the questions.
I'll just add to the general update that we are in compliance with the order from the regional board, and as the gentleman from the public noted, and as the council is aware, the Baker tanks in the Lindemar parking lot are a contingency measure to ensure that we don't have any sanitary sewer overflows.
Thank you. I think that answers all the questions from the public.
Is there a motion to approve item number 4 on the consent agenda?
I move we approve item 4 of the consent agenda.
And second?
I'll second.
Okay, we're going to do the roll call vote again.
For consent calendar item number 4, Councilmember O'Neill,
Yes.
Councilmember Beckmeyer,
Yes.
Councilmember Beer,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martin,
Yes.
Mayor Vaterlaus.
Yes.
Consent item number 4 passes 5-0.
Our next item is oral communications, the portion on the agenda available for the public to address the City Council on any issue not on the agenda. Any person wishing to address the council shall be recognized by the mayor during oral communications, provided, however, that during the period of oral communications, only items not on the agenda for this meeting may be addressed. All remarks shall be addressed to the council as a body and not to any one member thereof. And everyone will have 3 minutes, and if everybody would please submit a yellow card. The first person up will be Tiger Jazz Big Stick, followed by Sean Stack and Suzanne Moore. Tiger?
Last minute note to jot down. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council and City staff. I'm Tiger Jazz Twirls Big Stick of Pacifica. First of all, Happy New Year to you all. Congratulations to new council members. Congratulations to those re-elected. And I wanted to say, sometimes I write a lot of notes. I wrote basically one note. And that note for myself was, I believe in the virtue of each and every one of your thought processes. And I've had a long meditation over the last couple of years as I've seen both really good acts, from my perspective, of our council members and other decisions that I've kind of disagreed with. And I've recently started reading a book by Aung San Suu Kyi. And I haven't gotten very far into this book yet. I've actually only read the introductions. And the second edition introduction was written by Desmond Tutu. And what he talks about, and referring to her virtue in leadership, is about compromise. And that compromise is often difficult, but can ultimately help to bring that which is truly best for the people involved in those who get to experience the effects of leadership. I believe in the virtue of each and every one of your thought processes. And my sincerest hope is that, unlike certain decisions that were made over the last couple of years amongst a group of people whom are not sitting in front of me right now, lessons have been learned, and this amazing group of human beings who are sitting in front of me, each of which possesses a remarkable mind for thinking things through and a heart that genuinely cares about their community. Between the five of you, each will consider each other's perspectives with the gravity that each of you deserve, and that together you can find solutions to which you at least mostly agree, because I think that if and when you are capable of doing that, we, the public, will reap the rewards of the leadership that collectively all of us truly believe in. Thank you.
Thank you, Tiger. Sean Stack. Followed by Suzanne Moore, then Anita Reese.
Hello, my name's Sean Stack. I am a 30-year local here. I'm here to talk about bicycle riding in Pacifica. I'm an active bicycle rider myself. I've been riding for 20 plus years. Mr. Councilmember O'Neill, I'm sure you might remember me up here talking about this before. It's something that a large group of us have been trying to push here in town for maybe 10 plus years. We've been at it for a long time. We've been at it so long, some of us have kids ourselves now, and we really want to push it for them too. There's a large group of kids in town that are unfortunately getting left out of an activity they love, to ride bicycles. There's not really a safe place for them to do it. The best place for them to do it, unfortunately, would be a skate park, which we do have, one of the most amazing ones in the area, in the Bay Area. A lot of people come to this park just to go there. Bicycle riding is unfortunately not allowed there, but for some reason, I'm not sure, the top professionals of each sport practice on the same exact courses. They would ride that same exact course. Bicycle riders, skateboarders, they do the same sport. For some reason, it's not allowed. That's another subject, but I'm just here to let you know that group is still in town. We're still active. We really would like to pursue that this year to try to get a legitimate bicycle riding park for them to go. If it's not our own park, maybe the law changed to where they are allowed to ride in this skate park, to where the busy police department wouldn't have to come down there just to kick some kids out of a place where they're safely staying off the streets and staying active and learning a sport that they love. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you guys do everything for us. And I hope to talk again to each of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sean. Suzanne, and then Anita.
Happy New Year, City Council. This afternoon, I was present at the pre-trial conference in San Mateo County Superior Court of William and Gentry Jasperson, accused of felony charges including perjury, signing fictitious names, and identity theft while employed as signature gatherers during a petition drive here in Pacifica, May of 2017. Their jury trial is scheduled February 25th of this year. The signature drive overturned City Council Ordinance 814, a grassroots-supported effort for tenant protection. 2 serious investigations were spawned by this petition drive. The first was these felony charges against the Jaspersons. The second is an investigation by the Fair Political Practices Commission for missing campaign records, a possible violation of the State Political Reform Act. Since records are missing, we don't know who is responsible for this drive and how much money was spent, but we do know its outcomes. The petition drive overturned Ordinance 814 by a mere 63 signatures, while letters removing names from the petition continued to collect after the drive was halted, numbering over 63. The temporary moratorium failed, and many tenants received rent increases 50% and greater, causing people to move from Pacifica. And the pain of this experience has caused a community division which persists. It is really hard for grassroots efforts to compete against outside specialty interests. For the moment, our community waits to hear from our Superior Court and the Fair Political Practices Commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. Anita?
Hi, Anita Reese with the Pacifica Resource Center, and I just wanted to give you all an update about what PRC's been doing. We've been, of course, focused on the holidays. We provided Thanksgiving support to 411 Pacificans from 154 families this year. We also provided happy holidays to 205 children from 97 families, and I thank everybody who helped bring food in, gift cards, and gifts for the families this past holiday season. We're now preparing for our tax season, which is beginning on January 26th. With tax laws changing, we expect some confusion, and we're happy to assist wherever we can. Services are provided at no cost, and our tax preparers are trained on tax law and certified by the IRS. As always, we're looking for a few more tax preparers, so if anybody wants to try, we're happy to take you. Please call to either volunteer or to schedule a tax appointment for the 26th. We'll be offering tax appointments from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. That's a Saturday, as well as Wednesdays from 2 to 7 p.m. If those days or times don't work, we also accept drop-offs. So folks can drop off their tax papers, and then we'll prepare them. They'll come back, we'll sign, and we'll e-file. So we do e-file for free as well. Also on January 31st, which is a Thursday, we'll be hosting the one-day homeless count for Pacifica. So we work hard every year to find expert guides to help us get an accurate count, and we'll continue to do that this year. And I look forward to sharing the information that we gather, at least initial information that we gather on January 31st. And finally, it is the last call for our Golden Ticket Prize. If you got one of these in the mail in December, please get in touch with us to claim your prize. You can contact Robbie at the PRC. His number is 650-738-7470, extension 5. That's also the same number, 650-738-7470, to volunteer, to schedule a tax appointment, or if you need help. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I have no more yellow cards for oral communications. I don't see anyone stepping forward, so council communications. I'm going to start with Deirdre because you can't turn on your light.
Great, thank you, Sue. So I first want to apologize to everyone for being remote. My mother had spinal surgery, and I'm here to help her out for a week, get adjusted to home life. So thanks for your patience this evening. I wanted to report that I attended I was in the alternate for Peninsula Clean Energy Board, but attended the reorg on 12/20, where we set the schedule and went over some line of business. And I look forward to reporting to you in the next council session what goes on there. I also attended OSPAC very briefly in lieu of Sue Degree, but wasn't able to stay for the whole thing. We did talk about Cattle Hill and the parking area that's planned, and we're looking to get grant funding for that. I also attended the library advisory where planning continues, and Pacific Beach Coalition. Every year we adopt a threatened or endangered species to dedicate all of our efforts to. This year, kelp was chosen. I think the tag phrase will be "help the kelp," or "we all need a little kelp." I can't remember. It was pretty controversial. But this year, Earth Day is on Saturday, April 27th. I think sign-ups are starting now. Teams are gathering now. So pick a spot, and we'll help you get a team together. Also wanted to invite everyone to MLK, Martin Luther King Day of Service, which is on January 19th. It starts at 9 a.m. with a beach cleanup, and it goes till noon. And so the beach cleanup after at 10 o'clock is converted into a native planting on Lindemar Beach. It's one of a few times you're going to be able to kind of dig and plant on Lindemar Beach. So the goal is to return that back to its native coastal scrub. And it's a really fun time. It's one of my favorite days with the Beach Coalition. Also on February 9th, there is February 8th, it's the surf movie, the Pacific Beach Coalition surf movie fundraiser, where they raise funds for Earth Day. And this year they are showing It Ain't Pretty. It's the story of big wave women surfers from Ocean Beach, and a few of them will be there. So it's going to be a sellout crowd. There's 2 showings, and you get your tickets because they are going fast. And lastly, I just wanted to say that Mayor Vaterlof and I and the city manager are working on goal setting session planning. So just keep your ears to the ground for a potential date coming up. And we just want to make sure that everybody in the public knows about that. It's an open to the public planning session where we, as a council, get together and work on our goals for the upcoming year. But we also appreciate the public showing up and providing input as well. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Nothing. Oh, okay. During the holidays, things kind of slow up and stuff like that, but I did just want to give a shout out to the Terra Nova High School has just started their own Terra Nova Education Foundation, and they are having their first fundraiser this Friday, January 18th from 7 to 10 at the Sanchez Arts Center. So if you go to their website, Terra Nova Education Foundation, just Google it, and you can buy the tickets. And this is their first fundraiser, trying to, keep some of the same programs and experiences for the high school kids that a lot of the parents were able to give to the kids in grammar school. So this Friday, January 18th from 7 to 10 at the Sanchez Arts Center. Eat, Drink, and Give is the title of the event.
Thank you. Mary?
So I first just want to thank everybody, and I wanted to say that it's an honor to serve my city in this way, so I just really wanted to say that before I started. I participated in the Ohlone Portola Heritage Trail and anniversary planning. It's going to be the 250th anniversary of the Ohlone Portola exhibition, and so we're starting to do some outreach in the community, and we would love to have citywide participation. So if anyone out there in the community would like information, please let us know. It'd be great to have participation across the board. I attended an event at the Pacifica Library. It was Pacifica Supports the Caravan, hosted by the Pacifica Peace People and Pacifica Social Justice. It was an amazing, eye-opening event that I think everybody should really look into, just experiencing what these people in the caravan are going through. There's some links for some videos that I can offer if anyone's interested in those. I am a member of the Age-Friendly Task Force, which I talked about previously, so I'm really looking forward to doing that. And I attended the board meeting for the Pacifica Resource Center, and I just really wanted to congratulate Anita and her staff and all of the board. They've raised an incredible amount of money this year to support our community, and keep giving every month, because the Pacifica Community Center just does really wonderful things for everyone. So thank you.
Since I last saw you on December 17th, I've been very busy getting oriented to my new job as city council member, and Mary and I have attended a number of meetings with city staff, the city manager and city attorney, and all of the department heads, and then we're working through those independently. So we've already met with Director Tina Wermeister, Fire Chief Ron Myers, and Development Director Thomas Myers, and I've met with Assistant City Manager Lorenzo Hines about budget. So I'm trying to learn as much as I can, as quickly as I can. I also attended the San Mateo County and Silicon Valley Visitors Bureau Mixer in December. Economic development is a very important priority for our city, so I felt that would be important to attend. And I attended for observation purposes the Economic Development meeting, committee meeting in Pacifica on January 8th, and the Library Advisory Committee on January 9th, also for observation.
Thanks. I attended the Library Advisory Committee. We are continuing forward with the plan for 2 libraries, one likely to be an automated library, but things are changing all the time. With that, I attended the City and County Association of Governments legislative meeting where we talked about new bills. Big topic of conversation was the Metropolitan Transportation Commission endorsing a program called CASA, and that was a heavy discussion because there's a lot involved in CASA, not only rent control, but also building in transportation corridors similar to the Wiener bill that failed last year, but is coming forward again. I also went to the City and County Association of Governments regular meeting on 101 managed lanes. They are going forward with the managed lanes, and most of the meeting was to discuss who's going to maintain them. They also approved, I'm on the City and County Association of Governments Water Committee, and they did approve our new water group, which will be helping Pacifica in great ways because it's a collaboration between all the cities, and we have a project that we need help on. It's to help the cities collaborate together because nothing is individual. Our problems with sea level rise are the same in Half Moon Bay. In the inner Bay area, all the cities combine together and everybody has issues. But if we can do it as a group, we feel that we can get more grant money faster. And that was really important. I went to the installation for the San Mateo County Association of Realtors where they gave Homeowner Heroes Awards to Supervisor David Canepa and Glenn Sylvester, the Vice Mayor of Daly City, the former Mayor of Daly City, for progressing forward with large housing projects. And it was really, there were quite a few electeds there, and it was a really good event for them too. And that's it for me. Staff communications.
Thank you, Mayor Vaterlos. Kevin Woodhouse, City Manager. I have a few quick announcements, and then I'd like to also announce a new city employee. So, Councilmember Beckmeyer mentioned the new city council member orientation process we've been going through. So staff and I were really focused on that in December. It's about a 5-phase process and very detailed and hopefully informative. And related, that process is continuing as this week on Wednesday, Thursday, and part of Friday. I, along with the new council members, will be going to the League of California Cities new city council member and mayor orientation conference in Sacramento, and that is a wealth of information and is essential for any new city council members. The League holds one in Northern California as well as one in Southern California, and they're incredibly informative. So we'll be continuing that orientation process there. I did want to mention that we, on Friday, we had announced that there would be a Highway 1 closure to do some maintenance on a sewer trunk between Fassler Avenue and Reina Del Mar, and that was going to close one lane on Highway 1 northbound tomorrow night, but due to weather, that has been canceled and is yet to be rescheduled. So I wanted to make sure to have the public hear that change. And finally, I'm going to announce introduce the new Executive Assistant Deputy City Clerk, Elizabeth Brooks. So I'm going to take a minute to read this intro, and then if Elizabeth could step up to the podium if she has any words to say. But we wanted to welcome Elizabeth. She was born and raised in Northern California and has lived in and around the Bay Area since 2012. She moved to Pacifica this month with her 4-year-old daughter, Amelie, to begin her new role, Executive Assistant Deputy City Clerk. And she states that she's already loving the pace and people of Pacifica. Elizabeth's credentials are numerous. She comes to us with more than 7 years of administrative experience, a BA in International Development Studies from UC Berkeley, and a Master in Public Administration from Middlebury Institute in Monterey, California. Her previous work is focused on organizational efficiency and fostering social change through people-centered program design. And most recently, she conducted an evaluation of an online education program for a university in southern France. And she feels she's found her dream setting here in Pacifica, putting her education and experience to work in local government, serving local government. I mentioned France, and she actually has traveled around the world and speaks both French and Cambodian, as well as English. And her ideal day off is spent equal parts, you can ask her about this, but being outside, exploring new places, or settling in at home with a good show while she's busy creating something new on canvas with her sewing machine or with power tools. So she's also quite a multitasker too. I mean, working with power tools and watching a show, you know. So anyways, I'd like to introduce Elizabeth, and if she has anything she'd like to say.
Mayor Vattalos, city member councilors, I just wanted to thank you so much for the warm welcome to City of Pacifica. It's been a great first week, and I'm looking forward to working with all of you. I'm so thankful to the people I've met around town. As I mentioned, I'm really loving the feel of Pacifica, and I'm happy to be settling here to raise my daughter and to serve the community with you all. Thank you.
Okay, we have no public hearings, but we do have council considerations. So item number 7, the consideration of potential amendments to the City of Pacifica's marijuana regulations. And we have a staff report.
I'll go ahead and kick off the presentation with some introductory remarks. And for the record, we did distribute this PowerPoint to Councilmember Martin so she could know what we were referring to. As you'll see, quite a number of staff coming up here to participate in this presentation because this topic is a complex one. As everyone is aware, Pacifica has undertaken an innovative, marijuana business program, and it's been underway and being implemented for quite some time, and is really innovative in the sense that, Pacifica is one of a small number of cities in the state to be the first to permit recreational marijuana sales, and the first in San Mateo County. As with any innovative program, there's going to be lessons learned while we move through the implementation process. And we've already brought to the council in the fall one ordinance amendment related to the program. What you have before you tonight is quite a bit of extensive research related to other potential ordinance amendments the council may wish to consider. And originally, and one of the themes you'll hear from staff in the presentation is that as we were moving along in implementation, we were gathering information about potential amendments, and under the timeline that after we've implemented the program and we've gained experience with legal recreational marijuana retail shops opened, after some period of time gaining specific data related to Pacifica, we'd bring these amendments back to the council for consideration. At council members' request, we agendized and kind of expedited the research that we could do and put this package together for the council's discussion and further direction tonight.
Okay, good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. My name is Dan Steidl. I'm your Chief of Police, and I'll kick off the presentation this evening just giving you a short recent history of marijuana cannabis law in our state, which has driven our ordinance and brought us here tonight. In 2015, the state of California enacted the Medical Marijuana Regulation and Safety Act. Subsequently, it was renamed to the Medical Cannabis Regulation and Safety Act. And in 2016, the voters of the state of California overwhelmingly passed Proposition 64, which is known as the Adult Use of Marijuana Act, AUMA. And for the first time in the state's history, recreational or non-medicinal marijuana became legal in the state. So in both of these legislations, MCRSA and AUMA, they provided for local control of marijuana businesses through licensing and land use regulations. So we began our journey with the City Council and the Planning Commission in March of 2017. If you recall, a joint study session where we began talking about how we were going to wrap our minds about this and around this legislation, and whether or not we wanted to bring this type of business to Pacifica, and if so, what shape those ordinances would take. In May of 2017, the Planning Commission held a study session regarding the regulation of marijuana business locations, trying to help us decide where we were going to allow these businesses to operate. While all this was going on, in June 2017, the state legislature enacted the Medicinal and Adult Use Cannabis Regulation and Safety Act, which harmonized the differences that were between the MCRSA and the AUMA. And finally, in July 2017, our City Council adopted ordinances regulating marijuana activities, but delayed their effectiveness until the result of Measure G, which was a local excise tax on marijuana sales in the city of Pacifica. In November of 2017, the city of Pacifica voters overwhelmingly passed Measure G with a 78.8% yes vote. As a result of that vote, the election results were certified in December 2017, which triggered the enactment of Pacifica's marijuana ordinances. Staff began immediately with the processing of the marijuana retail applications. In December 2017, Phase 1 began. I'll talk to you about the different phases, as will the planning department, that we go through per our ordinance in the licensing of these businesses. Phase 1 began in December 2017 and rested with the police department. Background checks were conducted on all applicant owner-operators that applied. In February 2018, I rendered my decision per the municipal code regarding those background checks. 32 of the 34 applicants passed the Phase 1 background check. In February and March of 2018, the police department began processing Phase 2 applications. Phase 2 applications involved a security plan submission for proposed business locations. So by this point, the retail operations had to let us know where they plan to operate and provide us a security plan that was in line with the requirements of the municipal code. In March of 2018, all 22 applicants passed the Phase 2 review and were placed on the City of Pacifica qualified marijuana registration list. That being placed on that list made them eligible to apply for a marijuana use permit, which is Phase 3 of our process. And I will turn this over to Christian Murdoch from the Planning Department.
Thank you, Chief. Good evening, Council. I'm Senior Planner Christian Murdoch. I'm joined by my colleague Bonnie O'Connor, Associate Planner. We're going to each be covering different aspects of the marijuana ordinances as they relate to provisions administered by the Planning Department. As Chief Steidel indicated, Phase 3 began and ended in April of 2018 with 12 marijuana use permits, or MUPs, being received at the Planning Department. All of these applications were for marijuana retail operations. Marijuana retail operations are one of 3 types of marijuana operations the marijuana ordinances authorized, the other 2 being testing and manufacturing operations. In development of the ordinances, we had no idea how much interest there would be for all 3 categories. We certainly expected a great deal of interest on the retail side. We were surprised, however, to receive no applications for testing or manufacturing operations. With that said, our focus was to take these marijuana retail operation applications and move them forward as expediently as we could. Of the applications we received, 3 of the city's overlay districts out of the 5 that the council enacted received applications. Those were the Rockaway Beach, Lindemar, and Sharp Park overlay districts. And of the 12 marijuana use permit applications we received, 5 were filed by a single applicant. In May of 2018, the Planning Department conducted the Random Independent Ranking process, also better known as the lottery, to rank the 12 MUP applications. Due to the numerical limitations within each overlay district, as well as the citywide limit of 6 marijuana retail operations, the marijuana ordinances involved a randomized selection process to rank in priority order the method of processing the applications, rather than instituting a subjective judgment-based system, which would be subject to criticisms of unfairness or bias. So using this process, the 12 applications were ranked. After staff went through the lottery results, we determined which applications could be processed immediately. We identified 4 such applications, rather 5 such applications. Following the lottery, staff processed these applications, and after Planning Commission hearings, the council in October and November of 2018 has since approved 2 of these applications, both in the Sharp Park Overlay District, for Lit LLC and for Fog Center LLC. Due to delays by applicants in responding to the city to make their applications complete, as the city manager mentioned, the council has also enacted a minor procedural amendment thus far in November 2018. Ordinance 836 clarified the processing timelines applicable to MUP applications and provided sanctions for failing to make an application complete within 20 working days of notice from the city. And as noted in the staff report, of those 12 applications that we received initially, 1 has been withdrawn, the single application received in the Lindemar Overlay District, because the applicant's property owner withdrew authorization for the application. That left us with applications only in the Sharp Park and Rockaway Beach Overlay Districts. So here we are in January of 2019 with 2 MUPs approved and 2 nearing public hearings at the Planning Commission, likely within the next 2 months. Both of those applications, if approved by the Planning Commission, would complete the first phase of the marijuana permitting process. If those 2 applications are approved, the remaining applications on the lottery list would not be processed by the city, because all remaining applications being in the Sharp Park and Rockaway Beach districts would mean that we would be exceeding the numerical limits of 2 per overlay district if they were to be processed. And I'll return it to the chief for now.
Okay, moving forward to what some of the potential amendments could be to our current ordinance. The first would be to increase the maximum allowed number of retail operations for the Sharp Park and the Rockaway Beach overlay districts. Again, currently 2 operations are allowed per district. The limit is designed, if you recall when we enacted this ordinance, it was designed to prevent overconcentration in one area of the city and spreading those businesses out amongst the city in the different overlay districts to provide for convenient access for customers. In our research, some of our jurisdictions have reported that health and safety and crime problems that are associated with legal marijuana operations, while at the same time, research indicates that some have reported little to no problems. It's important to note that the impact of the marijuana businesses on Pacifica will not be known until our operations are in place and have been operating for a period of time. At this point, again, we're just beginning. We have one that's opened its doors. We don't know how this is going to impact the city yet. There's concern over current allowable retail operations per district. Those concerns appear to be driven by those who have not received marijuana use permits because of their position in the lottery. Again, it's important to remember when we went into this process, both staff and the city council were very well aware that we were going to have more applicants process than we were permits. And a reminder, we have 6 citywide that we can issue. We knew that there were going to be some applicants that were going to be able to open their businesses, and we knew ahead of time that there would be some that would not be able to open their businesses. In addition, if additional operations are approved in these 2 districts, the citywide cap on retail operations will be realized with businesses located in only 2 of the 5 districts, overlay districts that are available. And I wanted to turn the microphone a moment to Thomas Myers.
Thomas Myers, Economic Development Manager. One thing I wanted to add to what the chief said is that one of the centers that's open now, the Fog Center, has only been open for a month, and the only thing they're doing now is selling medicinal marijuana. It's possible that they'll apply for that, amend their application to sell recreational, but they're only doing medicinal at this time. And Lit, the second operation that's been approved, still doing tenant improvements on their location, so they're not open yet.
Thank you. And one of the other potential amendments would be to increase the maximum allowed number of retail operations citywide. Again, currently we're at 6. The current ordinance limits marijuana operations to 6. Initial planning commission and city council discussions in the very, very beginning, if you recall, the number 10 was batted around. Maybe we should allow up to 10 within the city. And there was actually talk by 1 or 2 people that said perhaps we shouldn't have any limit within our city. The staff recommendation that we had at the time was for 3 retail operations. That was based on our expert advice from our consultants regarding retail operations. Now, the consultants from HDL advised us that a ratio of retail operations of 1 retail operation per 18,000 people was average for municipalities. Today, I spoke to the same consultant on Friday. The state of California and the Public Health Institute both recommend 1 per 22,000 residents. Currently, as we stand at 6, without increasing it, we have a ratio of about 1 retail operation, once all 6 are realized, 1 per 6,500 residents.
Can council ask questions, or would you like us to wait till the end?
You can ask questions anytime you like, Mayor.
Mike?
Okay, my question is you mentioned we have the FOG is up and running, and they have, I'm assuming they have the state license at this point, right?
They do.
Okay, now the second one that was approved, do they have the state license?
They do.
Okay, so those 2 will be permitted, they can open, but anyone after this has to apply for a state license, correct? Are they temporaries or annuals, the ones they have, do you know?
The 2 that have been approved already are temporaries.
Okay, but they aren't issuing any more temporaries, so the 2 that might be coming up to the commission and council, and possibly the council the next couple months, without that state license, either temporary or annual, they won't be able to open, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that, thanks.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Continue.
Okay. And again, one of the things that our consultants advised us of and cautioned us on is oversaturation of the market in Pacifica would cause some of our operations to fail, increasing the probability that some of those operations, the ones that were failing, could be prone to illegal activity to keep their funds flowing in their business. It would become law enforcement problems and could become problems for other staff within the city, other departments. One of the things that's not in the staff report that was brought up recently with the consultant is with the changing of the laws, where it appears that there's going to be deliveries allowed from outside of the city, whether or not we permit them or not. We will lose control over that. That could also saturate the market and create an issue for the ones that are currently opening. Again, cautioning us to not allow more than the 6 that we currently are going to allow to have open. The recommendation, again, is to allow the current limits to remain, allowing for the full impact of our cannabis program at the current levels to be realized. And I'm going to turn the presentation over to Bonnie O'Connor from the Planning Department.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council members. I am Bonnie O'Connor, Associate Planner. I will review the potential amendments that could be made to the marijuana operation overlay districts in response to claims made by prospective applicants regarding the difficulty they experience finding qualifying locations for the application of this use. The marijuana operation overlay district is an overlay district that was created as part of the adopted marijuana ordinance and regulates the location of the marijuana retail operations. The zoning district does not regulate the location of the marijuana manufacturing or testing operations. There are several methods that could be used to amend the marijuana operations overlay district, including adding additional parcels, reducing the buffers from sensitive uses, changing the methodology for measuring buffers, and creating new marijuana operation overlay districts. I will discuss each of these further. The ordinance, starting with adding additional parcels to existing marijuana operation overlay districts, the ordinance amending the zoning maps by establishing the marijuana operation overlay districts included the rezoning of several specific parcels into each of the 5 marijuana operation overlay districts. The parcels selected met the following criteria of the marijuana operation overlay district. 1, the parcel is located just outside the established buffers from sensitive uses. And 2, the parcel is located within a commercial zoning district. The parcels selected by staff for inclusion in the initial marijuana operation overlay districts were not intended to capture all potential parcels that may be zoned into the marijuana operation overlay districts, but rather provide an initial proposal of appropriate locations. If it is the council's desire, staff can conduct a more in-depth review of potentially appropriate parcels for the marijuana operation overlay districts. However, this work would have planning staff resource impacts. Additionally, the city would have to absorb the costs of the city-led rezoning effort. The council should also be aware that property owners are currently able to apply to rezone their property into a marijuana operation overlay district by allowing applicants to request a zoning map amendment into the marijuana operation overlay district. The city costs would be reimbursed by the applicant and would be performed on an as-desired basis. The next change would be reducing the buffers to sensitive uses. The marijuana ordinance established regulations related to specific buffer distances from sensitive uses, including a 200-foot buffer surrounding daycare centers and a 600-foot buffer around K through 12 schools and youth centers from any marijuana operations. These buffers differ slightly from the state recommended standards, which require a 600-foot buffer from schools and daycares. The city's buffer distances were established after extensive discussions among the Planning Commission and concurrence from the City Council. Council could consider to direct evaluation of different buffers for the various sensitive uses, which may identify additional eligible parcels to be included in the marijuana operation overlay districts. However, similar to other program refinements discussed, the city manager's recommendation is that council allow for current buffers to be implemented and the community impacts experience before considering revising the buffers. The next change is would be changing how the measuring is conducted. The city established buffers around sensitive uses starting from the property line of the sensitive use and measuring in a straight line without considerations for travel distance or other factors. This methodology is consistent with the state's prescribed method. Additionally, staff finds this straight line method to be the most consistently accurate method to measure with available technology. The council could consider directing the development of an alternative buffer measuring methodology to consider community dividing infrastructure, travel distances, and other considerations. This alternative measuring method would need to be adopted by ordinance. Staff believes that a measuring methodology is developed in ways that attempts to address every condition, it would be difficult to follow. If a condition is not addressed in the measuring methodology, then staff would be left to implement a level of discretion that could lead to inaccurate or inconsistent measurements. Should staff require a professional survey to measure the buffer distance in specific cases, this would increase applicants' costs and timing to process the applications. Next change is creating more marijuana operation overlay districts. Staff developed the current 5 marijuana operation overlay districts using logical groupings of rezoned properties. Future properties that are rezoned with a marijuana operation overlay district would be assigned to a marijuana operation overlay district based on their location. The council could consider directing an evaluation of creating additional marijuana operation overlay districts. However, due to limited available parcels outside of the already established marijuana operation overlay districts that meet the operation overlay districts criteria, the benefit of adding a new district may be limited. However, this impact of adding a new district could be widely affected based on council's directions on the other variables that we'll be discussing tonight. And I'll hand it to Christian.
So while much of the discussion tonight and generally has focused on retail operations, they are but one of 3 types of marijuana operations the city can permit. As I mentioned earlier, there are testing operations and manufacturing operations. This item addresses revisiting the manufacturing operations regulations to potentially expand the types of manufacturing activities which would be permissible. Currently, only cannabis compounds extracted elsewhere may be combined into other products, and these products may be packaged and labeled for sale to customers in a retail establishment. Said another way, the marijuana ordinances currently prohibit extraction of cannabinoids at manufacturing operations in Pacifica. Staff's intent when developing the marijuana ordinances was to prevent extraction via potentially hazardous solvents such as butane or high-pressure carbon dioxide injected into the cannabis leaves for health and safety reasons. There had been reports of explosions in certain cases, and the type of industrial buildings that Pacifica has, in staff's opinion, were not well suited for that type of high-hazard industrial manufacturing. However, potential manufacturing operation applicants have discussed with staff non-solvent methods of extraction, such as those using heat and pressure only rather than chemicals, and which may not present such a dangerous public health and safety hazard as solvent-based extraction methods. If directed by council, staff could conduct further research to provide guidance for a potential future ordinance amendment. There are also a number of other non-substantive amendments which the council may consider in any ordinance amendment. Among these are to allow manufacturing and testing operations to apply independent of the retail operations process. Currently, these uses must wait until all retail applications which are pending have been decided. The recommendation would be to allow manufacturing and testing operations to submit their applications for marijuana use permits outside the timeline, which is limited currently by the retail operation application timelines. While this change certainly makes sense at this late juncture, Unfortunately, it's not clear what practical impact such an amendment would have. It's likely that the final 2 marijuana retail operation use permits could be granted by the time any such ordinance amendment would take effect, given the procedural timelines of working through the Planning Commission and the City Council. However, it's still an amendment which probably makes sense, and there could be unforeseen delays, and so staff would recommend considering inclusion of that non-substantive amendment. Another such amendment is to clarify parking requirements in Article 28 of the zoning regulations. This is the part of the zoning where parking standards for all various types of uses are included. The current MUP application requirements include a vehicle trip generation and parking demand analysis for all marijuana operation applications. Staff identified consistencies throughout all of the analyses which were provided in this first round of applications, which suggests to us the need for a common standard to be applied. There wasn't any great deviation between the various analyses that we reviewed. The recommendation would be to codify a new standard in Article 28 of the zoning, which applicants could then rely upon and save them the time and expense of obtaining a traffic engineer to prepare a project-based application, a project-based analysis rather. And while we have not received any testing or manufacturing operations applications thus far, it would seem sensible in staff's opinion that the council may want to have staff analyze and codify standards for manufacturing and testing operations at the same time, so that those applicants, should they come through the door at some point, they would not experience those similar delays and expenses of the retail applicants. And Chief Steidel will take us through a few additional non-substantive amendments.
So a couple of more of amendments that we're bringing to your attention tonight is in our definitions in the municipal code, changing marijuana to cannabis in all references. The change in state law changed the term in the state statutes for marijuana to cannabis. We want to do the same thing. The municipal code definition of marijuana refers to those state sections. Changing this term in our municipal code is in line with state statutes and will not change the definition. Simply, we'll strike out marijuana and we'll add cannabis everywhere marijuana once was. Also, there are several changes in the definition section that we would like to make in both of our ordinances, both regarding the marijuana use permit ordinance and the marijuana public safety license ordinance. These definition changes are state-driven with legislation that has passed since the enactment of Pacifica ordinances. Another item is incorporating our security plan review with the marijuana use permit review process. To refresh your memory, the security plan review is done by the police department in phase 2 of the process. The marijuana use permit is phase 3 of the process. What we found is reviewing the security plan independently, the two departments into planning and PD independently, can result in security and building plan approval by the PD that may not be consistent with planning requirements. In short, the police department, I'm a police chief, I can review it from a security perspective. However, I don't have the planning eye that Director Wehrmeister and Mr. Murdoch have. So when they're reviewing these, we think that it will be beneficial to the process, more efficient to the process if we review them at the same time, bringing phase 2 and phase 3 together. Staff's experience indicates the process could be streamlined by doing this, and looking at the deadlines for when you have to submit a phase 2, how long the chief has to review that, and when you have to submit a phase 3, we could chop off as many as 40 days in the application by doing that and reviewing those plans at the same time. So we'll conclude our presentation this evening by telling you the things that we're going to be asking of you this evening. First of all, should the maximum number of allowed retail operations per marijuana overlay district be increased? Should the maximum number of allowed retail operations citywide be increased? Should the marijuana operation overlay districts be expanded to include new parcels? Should the number of marijuana operation overlay districts be increased? Should the extraction of cannabinoids using non-hazardous methods be allowed at manufacturing operations? Should manufacturing and testing operation applications be allowed to move forward at this time prior to the completion of first-round applications. And in the end, we'll ask if the council has any concerns or questions regarding any of our miscellaneous or administrative amendments.
Thank you. Questions from council?
I have a question about the parking issue. It seems like one of the decisions that you're asking us to make tonight is, do we think it's a good idea to increase the number of retail outlets within the existing identified locations, which I understand to be Sharp Park, Rockaway, and it originally Lindemar, generally, but there weren't any applications for that area, so we're just talking about Rockaway and Sharp Park right now. Is that correct?
As it relates to parking specifically?
As it relates to where we're planning to have operations right now, based on the applicants that you have.
So we are processing 4 applications in, 2 in Rockaway and 2 in Sharp Park.
And is one of the decisions you're asking us to make tonight to consider increasing the number of outlets in each of those 2 areas?
So we would like direction on whether or not the council would like to increase the number of retail outlets that are allowed in each of those districts.
So with regard to that, and the issue about parking that was mentioned a second ago, and if I understood it, it sounds like you're wanting to write the parking regulations into the zoning and not require applicants to create a trip generation and parking demand analysis. Am I correct?
Right. Yes, we would be studying that and coming back with recommendations for a set amount of parking that they would need to provide.
And so have you considered that yet in terms of if it's 2, it's this, if it's 3, it's that? You haven't taken it to that level?
We haven't done that analysis yet.
At this point? Okay. Yes. Thank you.
I'm going to call on Deirdre next, please.
Okay, so thanks for the very detailed presentation, everyone involved. We had discussed towards the end of last year as the previous council bringing this back this year to look at expanding the number of allowable outlets in the different zones. So I think that's why we're talking about this tonight. I know that's why we're talking about this tonight. And we were provided with a lot of really good information tonight, and I think a lot of us know about the current retail operations that are going on, or the one that's going on and the other ones that are in progress. And I was not opposed to increasing that number. So I really just kind of, I know there's some stuff going on with former outlets, and I would just like to sort of make a note to say that if this is something that we're going to consider, I'd be in support of it, but I'd want to make sure that there are no sort of current violations or violators, or any, that there are any sort of, that anyone that would be next in line would have no legal action or debt out there against their business with the city, and that would all have to be cleared up by the time of that they meet their qualifications. So that's my input at this point.
Thank you. Mary?
Yeah, I have a few questions for you all. Currently, is there any baseline data around any health and safety factors? Has the city been collecting any data? Any kind of health and safety factors, in use, anything that you can think of.
So are you speaking regarding other jurisdictions that we've looked into, or specifically what's going on in Pacifica?
Specifically here. So sometimes, like before a program starts, you collect some data to see what was going on before, right? Then you have the program, it's implemented, and then you do an evaluation and collect more data to see what's happening afterwards. So I'm just curious about the data.
So I don't have any specific data to provide you. What we did provide council as well as the planning commission when we brought these ordinances forward for adoption initially was, our experience of just some basic quality of life issues, not to a high extreme, of course. The occasional complaint of loitering, the occasional complaint of, smoking cannabis outside of the business. But again, they weren't plentiful. There wasn't too many of those. In terms of crime, we weren't quite sure. We know that prior to the implementation of these ordinances, there were 5 businesses that were operating illegally in town. We also know they don't want to report the crimes to us. We don't know what occurred and what didn't occur because they're operating illegally, so they're trying to not have the attention brought to themselves, as was the case with one business that we found out that was the victim of a burglary with a high dollar amount that was taken of product, and we actually had to go back to that business and tell them several weeks later that we knew about it and see if they wanted to report it. We've since tried to repair that relationship during that process, but so that the data is not really out there for us. We're not sure.
Okay. I guess I would encourage the city to look at the California Healthy Kids Survey data. If we're going to be looking at youth access to substances and youth use, please look at the California Healthy Kids Survey data just as something that we can use as we're going forward. I have a couple other questions. If we were to increase the number of operations in the districts, then what would the application process look like for those two more applications?
Well, I think at tonight's meeting, we're hoping to get general direction. We don't have the answers to all of staff's recommendations for how that process would play out.
Okay.
Part of that, I think, would be for us to get direction on whether the council had an interest in providing some sort of preference for those already on the lottery list, or to allow the ordinance provisions as they currently are to be a first-come, first-served application process after the first round of applications is complete. So after hearing the council's direction this evening, I think it's staff's intention to come back with a more refined recommendation later.
Okay, thank you.
Mike?
I have a question in regards to number 5. You said, should the extraction of cannabinoids using non-hazardous methods be allowed at manufacturing operations? How can it be enforced knowing what method they're using to extract cannabinoids to know if it's a non-hazardous substance?
During the marijuana use permit process, that type of information about their operation would be disclosed by the applicant. And just like any other permitting process, if someone were to deviate from that in the future, we would either receive complaints or conduct a periodic inspection to learn of that. But they would have to disclose that, and I think we would trust initially that they would be complying with the stated extraction method in their application.
So so the second part you said they're complying with the state extraction method. In another part of the report, you mentioned that they use solvents, hazardous solvents for health and public safety. Does the state code allow for hazardous solvents to be used as a method?
To clarify, I said their stated extraction method.
Oh, stated, okay. I
The
thought you
method
said the
stated
state.
in their
Okay.
application, not to suggest there's a state-mandated extraction method.
That kills people.
That kills people
Yeah,
with
okay.
hazardous toxins, right.
That's why I questioned. I was surprised they did that. Okay, also looking at it, under your non-substantive amendment things, I'm kind of like a little confused about what you're saying here. So allow manufacturing testing operations to apply independent of the retail operations process. Can you define what you mean retail, independent of the retail operations process?
Yes, so to go way back to development of the marijuana regulations, We had no idea the level of interest across the three categories of marijuana uses, the retail, manufacturing, and testing. And so we treated the application process as a single application process. And in doing so, we expected there would be some level of interest perhaps across all three. With that assumption, we limited the ability for any other applications to come in until that first round of applications was processed. From start to finish, all of the permits which could be issued would be issued or denied, and then we would move on and allow new applications. As it happens, only retail applications came through the door, and as a result, other folks that missed that first application window have come to the fore and explained to staff they want to pursue a manufacturing operation in Pacifica. We said, that's great, we'd love to have you and evaluate your application. However, these provisions in the ordinance currently prevent you from making your application because we're still processing marijuana use permit applications, in this case, entirely for retail operations. And so, based on those assumptions, which didn't pan out the way staff had expected, we are prevented from accepting applications at this time for any type of marijuana operation, but most importantly for non-retail operations.
Okay, so then by reading into this, to submit outside the retail operation application timelines, you would basically have the same process, except now it would be open to manufacturing and extraction, yeah.
That's right. They would still go through the same phase 1, 2, and 3 process of the background check, security plan, and marijuana use permit public hearing at the Planning Commission. They just would not have to wait until all of the other pending applications are processed.
So they could be running concurrently type of thing?
Correct.
Okay. And what would be our revenue source if we were to allow manufacturing and extraction? How would we get revenue out of that?
The marijuana operations tax currently is written to tax the gross revenue of all marijuana operations. So even though it's not a retail transaction, the marijuana manufacturing operations, wholesale sales, for instance, those revenues will be part of their gross receipts and will be subject to the tax.
Okay, so we would get a gross receipts tax out of it, basically?
Yes.
Okay, okay. Yeah, pretty much answers my questions right now. Thanks.
Okay, if we do expand to 3 per district, back to kind of what Mike was asking about the manufacturing, could those applications be processed simultaneously so that we continue with the retail operations and then also the manufacturing permits? I know they're way behind because they start with phase 1 again. So could we start that process while looking at the additional 2 marijuana use permit applications?
So both amendments require us to amend the zoning ordinance first. So we couldn't, unless the council's, suggesting that we have this kind of tiered implementation of the zoning amendments, we couldn't start immediately processing the marijuana use permit applications for testing or manufacturing right away.
Okay. Got another question?
Yeah, it's kind of a follow-up after Sue is, okay, most of our, all of our present permitting allowed areas are C3, right? Commercial, or C1, right? A storefront C1, correct?
It's been some time. Certainly C1 is the bulk of the areas zoned in the marijuana overlay districts. There may be some C2 districts. C3 was not included in the retail.
When we get into manufacturing and testing, what areas of town, I know you're doing this off the top of your head, would be appropriate? Because now you're manufacturing more of an industrial type of operation than a retail operation. So how many areas in town potentially could be that, or could they operate side by side in Rockaway or Palmetto?
So, Christian, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the manufacturing operations are not, the areas are not expansive in town, but it is the C3, largely the C3 areas in town for manufacturing. Testing is more of like a laboratory, and so those can go into areas where offices can be permitted as well.
The
Okay,
C2 zoning district.
Yeah.
So if we did the manufacturing, we're probably looking up there by the recycling yard, possibly the Crespi Center, and that's pretty much
Yep.
it for C3, right?
Right.
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to ask that question. Thanks.
Does anyone have any additional questions before we go to the public? No? No? Deirdre? No?
No.
Okay. There are a lot of cards. So first we have Stella Chow, followed by Tiger Jazz Big Stick, and Tim Fitzpatrick.
Good evening. Thank you, City Council members, for the opportunity to speak. My name is Stella Chow. I work in the Community Health Promotion Unit with San Mateo County Health. When the City Council discusses buffer zones for child and youth-sensitive areas for cannabis retailers, we would recommend that you consider how children and youth will see marketing at retail locations. How this may affect a youth's perception of social norms in your community. The 2017 California Healthy Kids Survey reported that 13% of 11th graders in the Jefferson Union High School District were cannabis users, and 39% of 11th graders stated that cannabis was very easy to obtain. In 2015, across San Mateo County, the survey showed that 36% of 11th graders who used cannabis had initiated use by age 12. If we take cues from alcohol substance abuse prevention world, an analysis of 12 longitudinal studies showed a correlation between youth exposure to alcohol marketing and subsequent consumption behavior and/or other negative consequences of consumption. For more information on a youth-friendly resource on cannabis, please visit the Instagram page, cannabis_decoded. Thank you.
Thank you. Tiger, Tim, and then Adam Zollinger.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. I'm Tiger Jazz Twirls Big Stick of Pacifica. Recalling vividly many of the discussions we've been having lately about fairness and process and people just trying to figure out how to get their business up and running. What I came up with as my view on a prime directive is that as much as possible to absolutely level the regulations so that everyone willing to work to run a respectable business can have their hand in trying to do so. In answer to question 1, should the maximum number of allowed retail operations per marijuana overlay district be increased? To my sensibility, 3 is a reasonable number. I think it'll take some of the unfriendliness out of the process that we've seen so far. Personally, I view alcohol as being a far more pernicious substance than marijuana, even though personally I use alcohol much more often than marijuana. I still think it's a greater hazard. And, you know, the place I work sells alcohol, next door sells alcohol, across the street in the shopping center sells alcohol, and that's not uncommon that without arduous regulation, alcohol is one of the easiest substances on the planet to come by. And so if a poison like that is that easy to come by, one which I myself enjoy more often than marijuana, it seems to me that having 3 operations in one area doing their competition thing and just trying to run a respectable business is reasonable. Number 5, should extraction of cannabinoids using non-hazardous methods be allowed in manufacturing operations? Non-hazardous? Sure. A lot of potholes in this town, and that's not before even thinking about building a seawall. We need money, and taxes are good, and if we're using methods to do things in a non-hazardous fashion, please. Number 6, should manufacturing and testing operations be allowed to move forward at this time prior to completion of the first batch of applications? And I don't know if manufacturing applications have the same number of limitation as retail operations, but it seems like they're two different businesses, so why wouldn't we process them concurrently? Except for staff time and figuring out the regulation, I get that, but if we have it on the books, they're two different operations, so it doesn't seem like one should have to wait for the other. And when talking about manufacturing, if it's possible at all to put a strict limitation on the amount of poisons being used in manufacturing, non-hazardous good, certain poisons are sometimes considered non-hazardous, as tight as that regulation could be, I'm in favor personally. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim Fitzpatrick, followed by Adam Zollinger, and then, I'm sorry.
I'll pass on speaking.
Okay. Adam? Can you read this one?
Hello, I'm Adam Zollinger. First off, I want to thank planning for all the work they put into making all this slideshow here and bringing it up for topic and discussion tonight. Perhaps I'm a little biased because I'm one of the remaining applicants, one of the 2 remaining applicants for the next 2 permits that the 2 remaining permits the city initially had wanted, but due to zoning have not been able to achieve. So I'm a little biased, thinking that it would be a very easy process to, increase that number and allow the last 2 applicants I've already spent an exorbitant amount of money and have already sent in all the applications and done all the application requirements. So it would make an easier process than starting over or allowing any new people into the application process. So hopefully we can get that on an agenda for a vote soon. It's been a long time already, so hopefully it'll happen soon. And once again, I appreciate all the time and stuff you guys have put into this, so thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Next is Harvey Arnond.
Archie? Could it be Archie?
It begins with A-R-R. They wrote really small. And you got a bunch of people that need glasses up here. Harvey?
It looks like
Harry?
Harry R. something. It starts with an
What's your name?
Archie Judan.
Is there a
I don't
Harry
think
in the
it's
house?
Archie.
Oh,
Oh.
Okay. Harry passes. Crystal Matter, followed by Matt Ponovich, and then Archie.
I'll pass as well.
Okay. Matt?
Hello, my name is Matt Panovich. I'm lifelong Pacifican, and I'm one of the, mythical manufacturers that you guys were talking about. Currently, because, of the number 5 situation, we couldn't apply in Pacifica in time, so we currently hold a license over in Oakland, California for our business. And we would very, very much like to move back to town. I was raised here. I went to middle school at Valamar. I went to high school at Terra Nova, and I really don't like paying taxes to the city of Oakland when I feel like I could just be paying taxes to the city of Pacifica. I guess to answer a couple of questions that went around, so there's a bunch of different types of extraction. I believe what you guys were talking about was volatile extraction, which is the hazardous extraction that's mostly used, that's mostly done using solvents like butane or propane. We don't use any of that. We use either solventless or what's called non-volatile extraction, which mostly uses CO2 and water. And then I believe there was a question about gross profits too. We make, on a typical order, about $2,500 per dispensary that we deliver to, and we do anywhere from, and we're a small business, so 6 to 8 dispensaries in a good week. So that's a lot of income for the city. and we would love to come back here because I really, really don't like traveling across the bridge every single day to get to work. Yeah, and if you guys could see to approve numbers 5 and number 6, we would greatly appreciate it and start, paying into our town. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Archie, followed by Karina and Brian, and then Regis Schultz after that.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Archie Gidan. I am founder of the Cannabis Wellness Center. First of all, I'd like to commend the city of the Pacifica, as well as our council, for taking the initiative to readdress the concerns of our community and acknowledging that the cannabis industry does make a significant impact on the progression of our lovely city. I have lived in Pacifica for almost nearly 15 years and a business owner in Pacifica since 2012. I can recall on January 23rd, 2012, I was at this exact podium for a public hearing to appeal the city's decision to issue the Cannabis Wellness Center a business license to operate. We are here again today for the very same reason. If the city decides to change any of the ordinance, which then happens to qualify previous applicants, will the city reconsider their application? For example, if the city decides to omit daycare facilities from the ordinance, which is the primary reason the Cannabis Wellness Center was denied and unable to participate in the lottery process, will the city review the Cannabis Wellness Center's Phase 3 application for a secondary determination? Once again, I'd like to thank all of you for your continued support, and please feel free to contact me anytime for additional discussion. Thank you.
Hello, everybody.
Hi,
Happy
good
New Year.
evening. Good to see you.
Congratulations on all of your new positions. We are here to talk about manufacturing and how we would like to be able to apply without having to wait for the retail applications to be fully processed. In addition to that, we would like to ask for an option to do machine concentrates. So you asked a question about how you would regulate, using solvents or not and following directions. Really what we're after is using a machine. Brian can explain a little bit about it. And in addition to that, I would also like to request the ability to be able to not distribute entirely, but be able to deliver our products to the retail operations that we're doing business with. Yeah, cut out the middleman. If we're able, I don't know if it's going to work that way, but if we're able to allow distribution along with manufacturing, you might be able to receive double taxes. So it's my request.
And I would just like to clarify the process of non-volatile machine-assisted extractions. What that is the process of taking live plant materials such as keef, the crystals that are on the plant, or the plant itself, and using pressure, heat and pressure to press the material down to itself, essentially like olive oil. And what that does is it creates a process called sublimation. It forces the oils away from the moisture and whatever the material is, and it just essentially goes to the colder place. And it doesn't use any type of liquid at all in the process, any type of solvent at all. There's no risk of explosion. There's no risk of cross-contamination of any water supplies or any other supplies. It's 100% safe and effective means of acquiring cannabinoids through extraction process, and as effective as solvents even, so it's very, very safe. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Regis will be followed by Cheryl King and Brett Chapman.
State imposed middleman. So either allow them to have 2 licenses, or if there's some way to allow them to just direct.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, council members. I just want to give support to 3 stores in the zone. Just a little information about myself. I'm from San Francisco. All my life I've been just trying to be nice to people, trying to help people. Mom was a diabetic. My grandma was in a hospice. And my real daily grind was just trying to help the betterment of their lives. And with me working at, hopefully soon, a cannabis store, I'm able to talk to people and talk to patients and talk to even cancer patients, people sick, and people that are just trying to feel better during their days and their lives. I just hope that you do expand the stores, how many stores there are in the zone, to where we're not handcuffed to be able to help the people in your city. That's all that I really have to say. I'm here to help. I'm not even from here. I've been coming here for about 5 years. I love the city, and I would love to continue to come here to try to help the people in your city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. First of all, I am a mental health caseworker, and I work in San Mateo County. I do outreach. I see every county. And also, I am a co-owner of LIT. I am so proud of Pacifica for forging ahead with the cannabis ordinances, because I see people in every corner of the county that really do need the kind of assistance that this gentleman that just spoke mentioned. In setting up LIT, it's really, really been a hard road. Trying to meet all the requirements, trying to find a place to rent. You know, it hasn't been easy for anybody that wants to pursue this career or this business. So I'm hoping that you will really give a lot of thought about just rapidly changing the ordinances that you've put together. I came to many of the meetings. You had focus group, you had consultants, so a lot of time and thought and energy and money has gone into this. And we are a small business, and it is scary to just think on just one meeting that the situation could change, that we wouldn't continue to follow the ordinances that we have been. So I'm certainly open to sharing the field with other people. I want you to know that a lot of folks outside this city want our dispensaries open. And I take the severely mentally impaired to the doctors, to the physical therapists. I just had a lady die of pancreatic cancer. I go out there and do all of that, and I talk to the providers, and the providers want us. They can't wait until I have my cards ready, and they will refer to Pacifica. Thank you.
Thank you. Brett Chapman, followed by Suitha Gundavanahala. So sorry if I ruined that one. And then Mark Hancock after that.
Good evening, City Council members and Madam Mayor. My name is Brett Chapman, and I'm the CEO for LIT, and I'm here tonight to request that you defer all amendment changes until the current ordinance has been completed and each of our businesses has been open for 1 year as originally planned. Each of us risks significant financial investments to apply for a cannabis business in the city, fully understanding that there were limits set on the total number of allowable permits, and also that the results would largely be decided by a lottery. Each step along the way was filled with uncertainty, yet for those of us who applied, important business investments and decisions were made based on these rules. If I knew the rules could simply change, I wouldn't have so heavily invested our resources or finance to obtain multiple properties and applications to increase the likelihood of lottery success. I'd like to thank the planning staff for the comprehensive report and highlighted the data in the report suggesting 40% business failure if regions are oversaturated. If any of the new cannabis businesses fail, it hurts our city and the expected revenue the city is hoping for. Voting to amend the ordinance when we haven't finished processing current applicants is premature in my opinion, and it sends the message that the city doesn't care about the new small cannabis businesses in our city. Tonight, I'm asking you to support our new operators and applicants and to defer any changes until we've all been open for a full year as originally planned. Thank you.
Thank you.
She said to do it fast.
Right.
I'm Smitha. Is it my turn?
Oh, Smitha, yes.
Hello. Good evening, honorable members of the City Council. My name is Smitha Gundavajrala. I first wanted to thank the City of Pacifica and the involved council members on their leadership in marijuana regulation and their commitment to the safety of their community. I work for the Youth Leadership Institute, which equips youth with kind of the advocacy skills to address issues that impact the health of their communities and also note where those policies or issues may not have considered youth and the impacts on youth. To give some context, so the Youth Leadership Institute is a statewide org. Our San Mateo office works all along the coast, including Pacifica and Half Moon Bay. And our youth in Half Moon Bay couldn't be here tonight, but to give some context on what's happening in Half Moon Bay, in the most recent election, residents voted to approve measures AA and GG, where AA was a retail tax, and measure GG involved the cultivation of immature cannabis plants. So residents there, after the election and all the conversation that generated, are beginning to consider the impacts of these policies on their most vulnerable populations, including youth. As the staff report notes, while Pacifica has done research on these impacts in other areas, it's important to consider the landscape of access here. I say this, not to negate the benefits marijuana may have for qualified medical patients, nor to speak on legal access to recreational marijuana. I am here to ask that the City of Pacifica consider that increasing the max allowed number of retail operations has impacts on its neighbors in Half Moon Bay and other areas. I'm here to ask that the City of Pacifica consider the impacts of reducing buffer zones on youth, when the current buffer zone from K-12 schools and youth centers is less than 2 blocks, and less than a block from daycare centers. Measure GG, which just passed in Half Moon Bay, actually has a greater buffer zone, 1,000 feet from schools and youth centers. My youth spoke at the City Council meeting in Half Moon Bay, voicing their concern that youth were not considered in determining the strength of these protections. As Pacifica is a leader in implementing marijuana regulations, you now have the opportunity to partner with your neighbors, engage vulnerable populations in education and dialogue. I'm asking the council to consider these impacts before expanding the landscape of access to marijuana in Pacifica, which impacts the landscape of access all along the coast. I'm also here to thank the council for the willingness to have the conversation we've been having tonight and the enthusiasm and passion of the community that we've seen. I'd like to ask that we all continue to have this conversation with the Pacifica community and with other communities on the coast. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark Hancock, followed by Jesus. I can't read the last name. And then Robert Young. Okay.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. Thank you for this opportunity to be heard. My name is Mark Hancock. I'm a board member on the Fogg Foundation. We're an independent 501c3 here in Pacifica, where we promote responsible cannabis consumption for pain management and therapeutic purposes. I'm going to try to keep my comments quick tonight because fundamentally I'll just be underscoring items that others have shared. But essentially, at this juncture, it's bad policy to increase the number of retail licenses per overlay district or overall throughout the city, citywide. Simply put, city councils establish the rules for developing a retail cannabis market. And just like any sound economic policy, it should be fully implemented or implemented to the extent it can be before evaluation. And as I understand it, only 2 out of 6 licenses have been awarded. So one way to look at this is from a public policy perspective, we're only 33% of the way implemented. This is really a basic microeconomics concept. By adding an additional supplier in any particular district, what are you doing? You're fundamentally making a move to destabilize the fledgling cannabis industry here in Pacifica. Why are we now revisiting this at this moment? What was initially established as a sound matter of public policy, as I understand it, back into 2017 by the council, We're now revisiting these decisions that were made, again, based on solid policy grounds to prevent over-concentration in any one particular overlay district and to distribute safe access to the public. From where we stand as the Fogg Foundation and from conversations in the community, we recommend a 1-2-year moratorium on any ordinance amendments affecting licenses per overlay district or citywide, so data may be gathered and a study delivered to City Council by qualified consultants. I think one member this evening had a question, is there any data? Well, the answer to that is there is no data on how these businesses impact our community because fundamentally only one, and limited to medical, cannabis sales have been open for about a month. Finally, I'd like to ask the council to consider how is the Pacifica community supposed to tell the story around cannabis in Pacifica? Is it simply the most litigious or threats of litigation get what they want? You know, talking with folks in the community, it's no secret that Mr. Zollinger is threatening to sue the city. I ask you to consider, were the city to all of a sudden change the economic rules of the game and add another supplier in the Sharp Park Overlay District, for example, how is that right? How is that not simply economically disenfranchising incumbent licensees? Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Jesus, followed by Robert, followed by Cecilia Lindo.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council members, City staff, and Pacifica residents. My name is Jesus Sagoon, CEO of the Fogg Center, LLC. We are the first MUP license issued here in the town of Pacifica for medical cannabis. I am here to speak against any changes to the current cannabis regulations until the annual review of the licenses currently in process of the City of Pacifica. We believe that this is good policy and common sense. How can we change policy that hasn't even been fully implemented or evaluated yet? I am very grateful to the City of Pacifica for the opportunity to do business here. We are especially grateful to the city staff for their work and dedication to doing the right thing for the city's population and businesses applying for licenses. I look forward to working with the other licensees such as LIT and the 2 forthcoming in Rockaway Overlay Zone to continue as productive business members of the community. It is my belief that the current city licensure restrictions of 2 per zone are sensible and allow for 2 businesses to survive in a new and changing marketplace and regulatory system. More than 2 at this point would be premature. Most communities, Pacifica included, use the number of 18,000 populations per dispensary license as a guide for licensing restrictions in neighborhoods. We are currently over that guide already. Members of this council spoke in favor for only 2 licenses per district, especially in the beginning of the licensing process, to avoid over-concentration of dispensaries and to get an evaluation of the process. What has changed? There have been suggestions by city staff at the direction of the city council that some changes to speed the process might make sense, such as removing the parking study requirement. That makes more sense than changing the number in each district before initial applicants have been processed and completed. How is it that a licensed applicant who did not rank high enough in the lottery to have their license processed can hold up the process for about 60 days, costing the city tax revenues, then complain about the process and move this council to discuss this at this point? The Fogg Center has spent over $250,000 in a year to apply it and get to where we are today. We are glad to have done it. We are happy to have restricted ourselves to medical cannabis because of our philosophy of education and clean medicine for patients. Unfortunately, this threat to our business from City Council is ill-conceived and premature. If there were planned to be 3 dispensaries per district, we would have planned differently. We may have been forced to include recreational cannabis in our initial application. We know that the applicant who appealed is backed by legal firms and cannabis investment companies trying to take business from local independent ownership such as the Fogg Center and Lit LLC. We know this because they have called several times and have shown up at our business asking to provide written assurances to the City Council and their attorneys and investors that we would not oppose a 3rd license in the district. We oppose a 3rd license in each zone. We happily have paid the city all fees, well over $25,000 just for licensing. We even paid for the city's time and attorneys to defend itself against the applicant who appealed the city's decision to issue our license. We will continue to do our part and pay our part. We just expect the city to do the same, protect us like any other business and avoid over-concentration. Don't create chaos in the process through bogus appeals and the unnecessary waste of the city's valuable time before we even know how the program works. Thank you.
Robert Young, Cecilia Lindo, and then Trish Battaglia.
Good evening, council members, mayor. I'm a concerned citizen, let's just put it this way. For me, as I'm sitting back and listening to the whole thing that's being structured, I too agree at this point, we have nothing to base anything on. I think we should just follow through with the first structure that we said. I believe that was a year pending before we make any other changes. I think it's important to hold everybody accountable and not let outside influences try to shift the structure. We need to have a little bit of structure and consistency in order for us to be able to have something to judge with. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Patricia Battaglia. I'm a native of Pacifica.
Wait, Cecilia Lindo? Okay, sorry, Cecilia,
Okay.
then Trish, then Derek St. Pierre.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Cecilia Lindo, and this is my son, Nicholas Carenti, and we have the location next to CWC. I've been there for 10 years now. They were my neighbors for about 5 years, and I'm here to talk about the parking. The parking was not a problem. I have not had any crime or much issue at all as for my neighbors. Also, another thing I wanted to ask, it was about the childcare. What is it, the preschool that we have over there. I've been there 10 years. I have never once had any of them walk on my block. So I'd like to see my neighbors back. Thank you.
Now Trish.
Okay, so my name is Patricia Battaglia. I'm a native of Pacifica. I've raised my children here. I attended all the grammar schools, junior high, and high school here. I've been involved in the community for many, many years, from coaching soccer, track, Pop Warner, and other volunteer stuff. I've worked with the many organizations in Pacifica. One of the organizations that I am also involved in is the Cannabis Wellness Club. I, too, was a little bit cautious, thinking that it was something different. Unfortunately, I was very sad to hear that it was closed based on all of the codes and the zoning. Okay? I was one of the first applicants that put in a manufacturing application. Sadly, I only made it to phase 1 because what was available for me was the quarry, which we know Prop C didn't work. How could I put a manufacturing plant there? So since then, I travel around the whole United States and the world speaking to many cannabis people. This year, I've traveled to Canada, Colorado, Denver, Maine, Portland, New Zealand, and Australia. I see how far they've gotten, how much money they're making, and how they're doing stuff differently. I look around my town and I see the garbage, and I see a lot of things that we could put this money to use. The town needs money. You know, since then, I have obtained a manufacturing license. It is out of Pacifica. Sadly, I want to bring this back to my hometown. I want to be able to do this. My mother died of pancreatic cancer. My son was very ill. And that's how I became a part of Cannabis Wellness Club. I saw firsthand how my son was able to survive pain. I watched my mother die of pancreatic cancer. My business partner's father died during the midst of our application. I saw what cannabis did. I've spoken to many patients. Please do the same, and I'm sure you'll change your mind. Please reconsider the zoning, bring more clubs in the city. Thank you.
Derek St. Pierre, followed by Tony Williams and Holly Smalley.
Good evening, Mayor Batterlow, City Council. My name is Derek St. Pierre. I'm a consultant with LIT LLC. I'm pleasantly surprised to be back here again so soon. We were just here before you when our permit was appealed to the City Council. Now we're here before you to discuss potential text amendments to the legislation. I'm just confused as to why we're here tonight. Realistically, we still have 2 applications that are pending, one that'll be heard later this month, one that'll be heard in the month of February. And we still have an actual process that has not yet played out. What do I mean by that? We have a system that was set up with an initial application period that included a lottery. Subsequent to that, we'd envision an actual first-come, first-served process to occur after the completion of the lottery results and application permit processing. Here we stand today, we haven't even finished the actual processing of the pending permits, and we're talking about amending the legislation. It's just a confusing situation to me. There's fundamentally no data been generated whatsoever on the operation of Pacifica's marijuana community. In fact, as you've heard, only 30 days of actual business has occurred here in town at a single location. What I believe to be appropriate is much as what occurred at the Planning Commission hearings. Each of the applicants that have appeared at the Planning Commission were also then given a future date, a one-year annual review in which the Planning Commission can review the operating hours, review procedures, and determine what, if any, modifications need to be made. I believe that the appropriate time for this conversation that we're having tonight is after the completion of all of the annual reviews of the permit dispensaries. That way, we have a 1 year of data minimum in which to contemplate what is going on. I'd also like to wrap up and kind of just address the discussion of lack of availability of potential other locations. As you heard earlier from the Police Department and Planning Department, 32 people were approved in Phase 1. If you subtract out the 7 applicants that made it to Phase 3, that means there are 25 other individuals who have expressed written interest in trying to obtain a permit in this town. We do not know what those 25 individuals are going to do or not do after the permitting process reopens. I've also looked at the existing districts here in the city. Park Pacifica. With a matter of a few phone calls, I was able to determine there are open potential locations in Park Pacifica. Pedro Point and Lindemar. Well, we also know some of the constraints associated with Kimco, so a large number of Lindemar properties are excluded. However, there's new construction occurring right now in Pedro Point, which could accommodate dispensaries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time, and I hope you vote no on this.
Thank you. Tony Williams, followed by Holly Smalley, and then Andrew Young.
Yes. Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council. I'm sure most of you all know me. I'm Tony Williams, and I'm speaking here as a medical marijuana patient and the husband of one of the applicants for a marijuana use permit. In December of 2017, I stood on the sidewalk in Rockaway Beach in front of my wife's store at the time and told Chief Dan Steidel at the time that we were going to build the ideal medical marijuana store there. And a couple of months later, we opened up what's now known as Seaweed Holistics. We are a full plant-based retail store. We sell only plant-based products, and that does include CBDs. But during that time, we have created what we feel, and most of City Council has been in our store, what the ideal location is and what the city is asking for in our dispensaries too. To address the other gentleman about increasing the zones, increasing the number to the green zones, the other 3 zones there aren't that many places for people to open up. And Kimco does control, I think, most of those 3. So it would make sense to the city to increase the other 2 zones, or at least increase the zones to 3 per zone. And also, and again, this is just personal opinion, those of us that are against that are just sheerly speaking out of from a financial basis, because there's enough revenue in Pacifica from cannabis for 6 even more so dispensaries to be perfectly fine and do business perfectly well. So, thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Holly Smalley, and the last card is Andrew Young, and if anybody else would like to speak, please turn in a card.
Good evening, City Council members and Madam Mayor. I wanted to congratulate each of you, and I have so much respect for you, Mr. O'Neill, but it's kind of amazing as a woman to see so many talented and smart other women up on the council. It's pretty impressive. So congratulations to each of you. Don't let them boss you around too much. My name is Holly, and I'm the Managing Director for Lit LLC, and I'm here tonight to ask you to please defer making any changes to the ordinance until a later date. Not that you shouldn't make changes later, but just please not tonight. I was both surprised and confused when I heard the city was considering making these changes, and I have a question about why. Why not? Why now? What's the rush? Why tonight? Why are we talking about this right now? The Fog Center is our only cannabis business that is open. It hasn't even been open 30 days. They were appealed, which takes a lot of time and delay, but they haven't been open that long. We haven't been open either. We're approved, we have our state license, we were also appealed. All those things take time and finances and resources, and it's scary as new operators. We have two brand new I think hearings like the end of this month and early February with two new applicants in Rockaway. And if unhappy applicants are going to treat the Rockaway applicants just like they treated Sharp Park, I would expect they'll be delayed by appeals. And all of this affects our city. And it is ugly and it isn't friendly. And I don't understand. You know, the original ordinance didn't make everyone happy. It didn't make us happy to start, but it was fair. We all knew the rules. I read them over and over again. I can't tell you how many times I called the planning staff to confirm the rules, but we all understood them. And never once did we consider that if we didn't get the lottery results we wanted, that we would appeal other applicants in front of us. And never once did we ever consider if things didn't work out the way we wanted to, that we could just ask you guys to change the rules for us. The city and community, we worked really hard together for over a year to create this together. And again, it didn't make everybody happy, but it was fair. Some of the things that were said when the planning, zoning, and ordinances were being created, I thought were still maybe important today, was that no priority would be given to any interested parties, as it wasn't fair to other potential applicants waiting. Overlays and limits on permits were planned based on the needs of the city as a whole rather than on commercial availability. The city prioritized moving slowly to assess vulnerable populations and our city resources over rushing to gain the tax revenue. 5 different districts were selected for convenient access across the city, especially for senior citizens who might not prefer delivery methods and who increasingly rely on limited schedules of public transportation. And finally, that the ordinance was created to benefit the city as a whole, however unfortunate for some. I'm just asking you to give us brand new businesses with a potential 40% failure rate for oversaturation just a chance, please.
Thank you, Holly. And Andrew Young, followed by Harry Arruda.
Honorable Mayor, Sue Vetterlos, Mayor Pro Tem Deidre Martin on the line, and members of City Council and City Administration, I rise before you in corporate communications with California Strategies. We've been happy to partner with Seaweed Holistics in embracing the opportunity of moving forward and addressing the critical elements of many local residents here in Pacifica and across the region. Let there be no surprise that there are 2 other business owners in the room, in all due respect, who oppose the idealism of the city reaching its goal. I come to answer the why. Why is this matter before us today? I'd say the why is because a June 26 of 2017 council summary summarized that if the city would project that 6 retailers would project a revenue of $1 million that could provide the city of Pacifica up to $600,000 a year in income. Those revenues would go directly to the city's general fund to address the critical needs of our police department and other essential services within the city of Pacifica. Let there be no surprise that we have challenges, as any business would. We've worked, as Seaweed Holistics has worked directly with the police department in addressing crime issues within the Rockaway Plaza as soon as this week. the police department and its officers have contacted Seaweed Holistics and requested Seaweed Holistics assistance with addressing issues that are non-drug related to Seaweed Holistics. So that speaks of the current data. I hope that tonight that we consider the questions. Yes, we actually oppose any expansion of cannabis retail across the city at this time. That means anything other than 6. Why? Because we should focus on rolling out our current 6 within applicable zones, collect that data, and then return a year from now based off of that data, and then you could decide at that time. We are willing and able to contribute additional resources to the Pacifica Resource Center and other youth intervention and nonprofit organizations. We are a community partner. We're here to work with the city in helping the city reach its goal, which is outlined within your city council work plan. I have no further comment at this time. I ask that we work together as a community. Yes, businesses will oppose one another. We're not here to do that. We hope that Fox Center and Brett and the other owners will actually prosper as well. We're in this to heal people, not oppose another business. We're in this to heal. We have a community just like any other that's largely vibrant, but we have people that also need us. That consists of our police officers, our public works department, and many others. And we hope to be able to contribute taxes immediately and moving forward to the city of Pacifica. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Robert. Now, Harry is the last card I have. If anyone else wishes to speak, please fill out a card and bring it forward, or have it brought forward. Thank
Mayor,
you.
City Council, Chief. My name is Harry Arruda with Greenfield Solutions. I just want to make a couple points. We're a consulting firm that handles security and auditing in the cannabis industry. There is no data that we can find while working through many cities and many counties in California that 3 or more permits in the city or in a small zone impacts crime. What impacts crime is when a dispensary or an operation does not have an intensive security plan. If you have an intensive security plan and you have a cooperation with the community and a partnership with law enforcement, with the fire department, and with the city government, it makes for a successful operation, no matter how many you have. The term saturation, I know, is a typical term, but having 3 to 4 in a zone, to me, is not necessarily saturation. Again, the key, I think, for any program is if they have a in-depth security program, they partner with the city, they partner with the police department to address issues when they happen. I think based on the numbers that the chief had given earlier from the consultant, I don't see 3 permits in one zone in the city of Pacifica to be a huge increase, especially when there was, I believe the number was 6 permits that were originally allowed through the city. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's all the yellow cards. No one else wishing to speak. I'm going to bring it back to council. Who wants to go first? Maybe, oh, Deirdre, you want to go first?
Well, I'm interested to hear what others have to say, and also if there's guidance that staff needs, if we could pull that PowerPoint back up. I'm not sure if that's also what we have to leave here with tonight.
Can you say that last line again?
Sure. I wanted to know if there was, if one of those PowerPoint slides had bullet points that asked for our specific input on those items.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's
it's
on the show. It's on the screen now.
Okay, I have it. I just wanted to make sure that we're all looking at it and addressing those items that need to be addressed.
Channel 26. Okay, you're going to put that on?
It's on there, but not on that
Yeah.
one.
So that's on slide 26, or sorry, 25. Request the direction, next steps.
Okay, it is up now.
Okay. Yeah, so, I mean, this all kind of stemmed from, we agreed last year as a council, the original talks were around 10 retail operations. We settled on 6. 10 kept coming up, or more kept coming up repeatedly, so we decided we would discuss it in the new year, and here we are. That's the why, in my opinion. Others might have a different answer. But to address the first requested direction point, which is should the maximum number of retail operations per marijuana overlay districts be increased, I'm okay with that. And I think if that's the answer, then should the maximum be increased, then that answer is defaults to yes. Unless you remove some operations in the different zone. I guess that would be down in Park Pacifica. I'm not necessarily a fan of item 3 there. I could be convinced into discussing that, but I think all of our options were really well vetted to expand to include new parcels. The Planning Commission took a lot of time with that, and so did the Planning Department. So I think that kind of goes hand in hand with item 4. Then we've got item 5, should the extraction of cannabinoids using non-hazardous methods be allowed at manufacturing operations? I would default to Chief's recommendation there. And then I would also default to Chief on item 6 too. That's my input.
Thank you. Who wants to go next? Oh, sorry, Mike.
Chief, Deirdre said she would default to your recommendation for number 5. What was your recommendation?
So my professional recommendation on that, I would not be opposed to
number 5.
Extraction of cannabinoids using non-hazardous methods. I would not be opposed to that.
Okay. I just didn't know what your position was. So, in regards to requested direction, next steps, number 1, I would say I would like to maybe customize it a little bit, because one of the letters or emails we got from somebody was raising the question of the differences in the neighborhoods. Now, Rockaway is, for the most, there are, 30 residences there that we had on that districting map, and that's, for the most part, commercial, while Palmetto is pretty much residential and, quite a few young families, et cetera. So I would answer yes, I'm willing to increase the number of retail operations, but maybe have a total of 3 in Rockaway and the remaining 2 stay in Palmetto Sharp Park, just to kind of customize it because of the surrounding neighborhood. Maximum number of retail operations be increased? No, I would not want to do that. Overlay districts, number 3, I would not be in favor of that. Number of marijuana operations be increased? No. I'm sorry, the parcels be increased? No. Operations overlay? No. I would be yes on 5 and be allowed to move forward this time. I would say yes to number 6. So that's my thoughts. But I would like the council to consider maybe increasing one more to an area that's more heavily commercial than Sharp Park is commercial, but it's very much mixed use with families and residential.
I think I'm going to answer number 7 first, if you don't mind, because I do have some concerns about making changes to an ordinance so soon without collecting public health and safety data, without allowing for the complete implementation of a program and then evaluation and then do another assessment. I think that it's premature, and I'm very concerned about that. Having said that, I know it has been hard for people to find sites in other districts. So if we were to revisit after the full implementation of the program, then adding additional sites in other districts could be something that I would be willing to talk about. Should the maximum number of allowed retail operations citywide be increased? No. Should the marijuana operation overlay districts be expanded to include new parcels? I would need further research on that to give any answer for that. Should the number of marijuana overlay districts be increased? No. Should the extraction of cannabinoids, so number 5 and number 6, I would also be willing to consider those. But again, I still think that no changes should be made until the whole program has been implemented and data has been collected and sites have been able to start their business and to see what happens. So,
Sue.
Okay, so we're kind of going down the line, and I like what Councilmember O'Neill suggested about a customized solution with regard to looking at the neighborhoods. That made sense to me. I don't think we should increase the maximum allowed retail operations right now. I think it's premature to do that. And the number 3, should the marijuana operation overlay districts be expanded to include new parcels? Not at this time. Should the number of overlay districts be increased? I don't think so. I am open to the idea of the extraction of cannabinoids using non-hazardous methods, but I do have concerns about safety beyond just the solvents and the chemical piece. CO2 is dangerous. We have CO2 detectors, so we know that while it's not, a chemical solvent, it can still be harmful. And so I would be concerned about what our safety protocols are in terms of how that plays out for evaluation.
Oh, right. Sorry. You're right. Actually, you can't speak from the audience. Thanks.
Sorry.
We can, but it doesn't mean we have to listen.
Thanks.
Thanks. So should the manufacturing and testing operation applications be allowed to move forward prior to the completion of the first round of applications? I'm a little on the fence on this one. I hear what you're saying, Mary, about not jumping the gun. However, I see this as a separate kind of business, and I think that it's something that is a market opportunity for our town. And we've heard from a couple of individuals who are in this business, who are locals and who want to bring this business here. So I'm actually in favor of that. And I don't have any other questions at this time.
Okay. I want to say a few comments first. We previously had 5 to maybe 6 dispensaries operating in Pacifica. Everyone seemed to be fine. There was no crime as a result of those dispensaries. We weren't making the income that we could have been making or that we can be making. We approved 6 dispensaries. It turns out that as we are now, we will only have 4. We approved 6 because of the funds. Everything's not about money, but this is about money. The city needs the money. So I'm in favor of 6 dispensaries. We went over and over on the number of dispensaries. So I think that the maximum number in each of the overlays should be increased to 3 per, 3 in Sharp Park and 3 in Rockaway. And I tend to disagree with Mr. O'Neill because the Palmetto area is all commercial. The whole length of Palmetto is commercial. It's bordered by housing, but it is commercial. And I've told this story before. I'm a 64-year-old woman. I tried to go into a dispensary, and they said, "Do you have a card?" I said, "No, I just want to see what it's like," and they would not allow me in. So I don't see them allowing a 2-year-old or a 14-year-old into a dispensary. So I think that our rules that we made with 200 feet from the daycare and 600 feet from the school, we went back and forth a lot on that, and I agree with those rules. So I don't think the maximum should be, in the city, should be increased. I'm sorry that I don't think that we should include new parcels, because I think the 600 and 200 feet are valid. Should the number of districts be increased? No, I don't see any other districts bringing in stores and operations. Yes, I believe the extraction of non-hazardous materials should be allowed. I would like to see the applications move forward simultaneously, even on different separate tracks, because I think that the people who applied for retail over a year ago. They put money out, they're putting money out now. No one applied for manufacturing at the time when the other people applied for their marijuana retail operations. And I think there are only 2 people left in the lottery out of the 12 spots, and I think that those people should be given consideration ahead of the manufacturing people who have not yet applied. So, I'm done.
Process, could we go down the line and do a straw vote to see number 1, 3, 2, 5, 0, whatever it is, so we have a handle on it? So, are you shaking your head yes or no?
Yes, I'm saying yes. Well, for what it's worth, I do think that, from what I can tell, there seems to be consensus on 2, 3, 4, and 6, and I think, and this item is just giving direction to staff, so I think we've got direction on 2, 3, 4, and 6. I think item 1 and item 5 perhaps needs more discussion of the full council, if you wanted to, or you could go down one by one, but.
Okay, no, that's fine, I just wanted, you know what I mean?
Yes, so I do think that there needs to be more discussion on item 1 and item 5, and then having a voice vote of some sort would be helpful in terms of, or consensus, to give direction to staff.
Just discussing my proposal for number 1 is, yeah, Palmetto is zoned commercial, but it's being planned for, or the hope is to make it more mixed use, as we evolve it from what it is to a Main Street. So I just feel that with the additional, this one letter just really kind of had an impact on me, because it is other businesses there and people in the hotel and stuff that I just think it would be nice that it is a family area, residential on either side of Palmetto. And that's why I would like to see that we look at the different, like Pedro Point is out kind of by itself, and it's a commercial area. The houses are pretty far away at Pedro Point. If we were to get if things change or whatever, move out, I would look at that as more of a commercial area. So I would just like to really push or suggest and have discussion on treating the areas more neighborhood-centric, and that Rockaway go up 1 and Palmetto, Sharp Park stay the way it is at 2. I mean, that's my thought.
This is Deirdre. I have a tendency to agree with Sue. I used to live, Sue Vaterloss. I used to live on Palmetto in a cottage, and it was zoned commercial. So it too could, and it's right next to it's surrounded by houses. So there's a whole bunch of places on Palmetto that will just be right in the middle of houses. That's the way a Main Street sort of works anymore. So I agree. I don't think it necessarily needs to be up by the U-Haul or the Domino's. I agree with Sue. I think, you know, there's going to be a lot of places on Palmetto that apply.
I just, Deirdre, you're clear, we're not talking about manufacturing, we're just talking retail now, right?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. Mary?
So I think I did state that because it's been so hard for people to find sites in other districts, that increasing the number of allowed retailers in Rockaway and Sharp Park could be helpful, especially to applicants who have been compliant. And so I think there's a compliance issue that we should probably discuss. So I guess my answer to number one would be yes.
Yes, to
Yes,
three in each, or
To 3 in each.
3 in each?
I can live with that.
Sue?
Yep.
Okay. So number 5?
So 4?
Can I go back to that for a second? This is Deirdre.
Yes.
But I just do want to say that if, you know, given this discussion, we're discussing number 1 here, should the maximum number of allowed retail ops for marijuana overlay district be increased, that when we're talking about increasing and granting applications, I'd like to make sure that those who are next to mine or going through the process have no, you know, what did I say earlier? That there's basically no legal action or debts against their business or with the city, and that they have to be cleared up by the time of the qualification. So I'd like city manager or planning to be able to sort of address that in verbiage somehow. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Thanks.
That's okay with city attorney?
Yes, yes.
And I would say that I think that I understand the direction, and if that's the direction of the council, we can work with the city attorney's office to bolster the findings that the planning commission needs to make, and make that part of our ordinance amendments.
No, I do think, though, we should, from what I gather, is we're keeping the number of, total numbers, it's still at 6. It's just these 2 areas we're keeping 3 and 3, right? Okay. I just wanted to emphasize that.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so the rest of them we all agreed on except number 5?
There was comment by Councilmember Beckmeyer about safety concerns, and so
Right.
I wanted to get more clarity on that.
So I don't know how safety is factored into the planning process now. For example, we have a commercial baking operation in La Patisserie. I am assuming there are standards, there's OSHA, there are, you know, certain checkoffs that the city would need to have and be confident of for the safety not only of the workers, but also the surrounding area. So I mean, I get that the hazardous chemicals piece is separate, but how do you define hazardous? I think that's what I'm really concerned about. How are we defining our terms in terms of hazards, safety? What are our safety check marks and checks on that from a planning standpoint? And I need more information on that. I don't have those answers. I'm just raising the concern.
Yeah,
And I think that those are good concerns, and if we have direction to study that, we will need to come back with a lot more detailed information for you.
That satisfies me. Thanks.
Yeah, and I think that was where I was headed. Like, I feel like some of these questions really need further research.
Oh, yeah.
And so I wasn't sure, being this is my first time, by the way, if we're able to just request that. Like, we need more information in order to answer these questions, but.
Yeah.
Well, given what I sense being the consensus of the council, there are a couple of ways to address this. We could come back after staff has researched it and put forward proposed amendments to effectuate the majority consensus of the council, in an ordinance form and bring that back for council's consideration with answers to some of these questions that you're raising here tonight. Or if council would rather have an answer to those questions before you direct staff to actually prepare amendments, then we can do that as well. So it's up to the council to give us clear direction on what is the next agenda item that you want to see on this topic.
What is the time frame, okay, for staff to study? And I realize it's probably not till February or March, something like that.
So if we were to bring back another study session item on this particular question, it would lengthen the overall time, because
Right.
we would need that input from the council first before we craft the ordinance changes, then we go to planning commission, and then we come back with a recommendation to the council.
My preference would be that we come back with an ordinance, because I trust the professionalism, police and fire and planning to know that this is hazardous, this is not hazardous. That would be my preference.
And that means we would study, staff would prepare draft ordinance, staff would take that draft ordinance to the planning commission, then that ordinance would then come to the council, and the council would then review it at that time, and you can always make additional revisions if you're not satisfied or whatever, but is that the consensus of the council?
I would like this to be done as soon as possible, because we've delayed so long.
And that would be the fastest way to get
Okay,
it done.
the fastest way possible.
I want to address one thing that you brought up, though, Sue, about you were talking about parallel process, moving forward in a parallel process, but you also separated the two outstanding, you said you wanted to see those completed first, so I wasn't sure.
I know, I did say that.
Okay, good. Help me out.
Because the people who have applied for these have worked on this for a full year.
Right.
So I would like to see their process move faster. I would like to see the manufacturing come forward also.
Right.
But not at the expense of the marijuana dispensaries that have been working on this for so long.
I agree with that. And on that same idea, I think just to clarify, I do want to see a parallel process, though. I would want to see that going forward, and I realize that that is affecting staff time and affects the ability to do other things, but I think this is, as Sue said, really important. We need the funds. Therefore, I don't want to wait until a year to evaluate and then add this new business option on. I want to see us find a way to do them in parallel.
And through the mayor, you had brought up a good question that we need some clarification on, which is if we're expanding the number that are allowed in Sharp Park and Rockaway to 3, are we also using, what is the status of the lottery list? Are we opening applications again? Are we using the lottery list? And so we'd like to hear your thoughts, and that would assist us in drafting the ordinance amendments as it relates to the existing lottery list.
Personally, like I said, those people applied at the correct time, at the time that was allowed for them. They went through the 3 steps, and they were all put in the lottery. Some were at the bottom, some were at the top. I mean, it just depended on where you were drawn. But those people all were in the lottery. And at this time, with the applications that have already gone forward, there would only be 2 people left in the lottery process. If somebody fails in this process, then we'd have to reopen it, because there are no additional people in the lottery. But I believe how it reads is that until the lottery winners are exhausted, something similar to that.
Right.
So I think it's important.
As long as they're still in compliance with all of the city regulations for being an applicant and being on this lottery list, I think they should go forward with those.
Okay.
For the record, this is Deirdre. Item number 2, I was okay with increasing the maximum number of allowed retail operations. Just for the record.
Wait.
Okay.
And I'm thinking, this is Sue Beckmeyer, I'm thinking it would be something I would want to revisit after we've had a year of operation and some data to look at, and we see how the impact is.
Yeah, that's fine. I just want to make sure City Attorney got that because she had it down incorrectly.
Okay, thank you. Mike?
I have a question in regards to the manufacturing, okay? Basically, being the state's really not issuing licenses at this point, and the ones that are pending before the Planning Commission in the next couple months probably won't get a license. The manufacturing, is that same issue with the state licensing affecting manufacturing as well? And the question, like there was somebody that said they were over in Oakland. Would they just be able to transfer their license over, or is it a brand-new license for them if they wanted to open in Pacifica?
So in terms of what the time frame is for the state, I've spoken to the state at length myself. The state advised me there's a lot of misinformation out there. When I asked the state for a ballpark number in regards to those who did not meet the December 31st timeline to get a temporary license, what is the ballpark timeframe to process these applications and to get the permanent licenses? I was told by the state, we don't know for sure. It was their belief that there is a lot of misinformation about there, that it's going to be extended a great deal of time, but they couldn't give me an exact number. Part of the reason that it's going to be a longer period of time is the permanent licensing process is more intensive. And there's more information that's required, and there's greater scrutiny. Those who already have temporary licenses still have to go through that process. And as the state advised me, there are some that have temporary licenses that may not get permanent licenses. It's simply because the amount of time or the amount of work that it's going to take the state to get those permanent licenses.
I wrote an email to the Bureau of Cannabis Control on 12/26. I was impressed they responded to me in the same day. But to date, asking them basically this question, how many licenses have they issued? And to date, the Bureau has issued approximately 566 storefront retail licenses. 8 are annual, meaning permanent, and 558 temporary. And they've issued 240 non-storefront retail licenses, all temporary. So basically, in the 2.5 years they've been in business, they've issued 8 licenses, permanent licenses. So that's why I'm concerned about, it's great, we're all here, and the door's unlocked to the kingdom, but the door's locked to the kingdom, but nobody can get the key from the state, basically.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Correct.
But do you know if those people that are in Oakland would be able to transfer their license here?
I'm not certain about that answer. When you say transfer, do you mean their state license will allow them to operate in Pacifica?
Will it allow them to operate in Pacifica, or can they because like the Bureau, ABC, they allow so many liquor licenses per city.
Correct.
Or census tract. And basically, okay, so does the cannabis control work the same? Is that it's issued in Oakland, it stays in Oakland, or it's issued for Oakland but can be transferred to Pacifica?
So I believe those are location specific, but I'm not positive.
Okay. I'm just asking, that's, thank you, Chief.
Does staff have direction from the council on this item?
I wanted to make sure, I didn't hear much comment about the administrative revisions, number 7, but I presume that there was support regarding those.
Those are the non-substantive ones?
Yeah, the miscellaneous
Here we go.
administrative.
Page 10.
Yeah.
This is Senior Planner Murdoch. I think many of them are rather common sense,
Yeah.
updating the term marijuana to cannabis, updating section references. I think the couple that required a little bit of guidance were allowing the manufacturing and testing to apply independent, which we've already discussed and addressed, and then the parking standards in Article 28.
Fine with me.
But in looking at the bottom part on page 10, the recommendation is to consider an ordinance amendment after the 2 remaining MUPs are processed, but I
Right.
believe we changed that, correct?
Correct. I mean, I
Yeah.
think in general, that was staff's recommendation to wait. The council has expressed, it sounds like, a different intent, and so I think we can work through that.
Okay. So,
Sorry, I keep just talking.
Go ahead.
Can I speak?
Yes.
I just wanted to commend staff on the issue about streamlining phases 2 and 3 and how it will reduce the process, the timing. That sounds wonderful. And that's the kind of efficiency that I was going for when I was saying, trying to get these 2 things going in a parallel. Thank you.
So I believe, and I'll ask the remainder of staff if the direction is clear on items 1 through 6. I believe we do have clear direction, and we'll need to, convene the team and really talk about a timeline that is realistic for this, given primarily planning's heavy workload as well. I'll update the council about that timeline, and we'll begin work on the ordinance revisions and processing those through the Planning Commission and then the council.
And I'd like to thank everyone for getting this done so rapidly and getting it for our first meeting of the year. Thank you all, everybody. Is that it on that item?
Is for me.
Okay, I want to take a 5-minute break
Thank God.
before we go to the last item.
rookies.
Is there a button for, I want to
Classic example.
not like you're gonna.
Doesn't matter. Whenever I do the solar, I can say.
They were going to increase. So, you don't need I think it's fine.
Yeah.
And then maybe in the end.
So person finally, I'm hearing your name and I'm like,
For what? For what? Oh, yeah, I was gonna send, I gotta send Sue, don't hit reply all.
ready to resume. We have another item on our agenda, so if people want to speak, if they could go outside or sit down. Our next item is the 2019 City Council Liaison and Committee Assignments. Do we have a staff report?
Yes, Council. Each year, due to City Council reorganization, the Council reviews the liaison and committee assignments at the first meeting in January to make any possible modifications for the coming calendar year. This would be for 2019. Attached to the agenda report, it shows the current assignments for the calendar year 2018 with some modifications showing those that have sunsetted or are no longer in existence, and then with the former council members' names highlighted where we would need to make a selection for that agency or committee liaison. Those committees that are indicated with an asterisk on the list are those where it is not at the council's discretion to make those selections, but at the agency's selection to make those appointments. Also attached is attachment B, which includes some additional meeting information and descriptions for each of the committees that may be helpful in making the selections for council liaisons or assignments to those committees.
So I had the list. I called all of the council members and asked them what their preferences would be. And I filled them in the best that I could. There may be some overlaps in time that people are going to have to check because I did not check the time overlaps. I filled in people to the best of how I could do it. I'm sure there are errors on this list. And so I don't know whether you want us to go down from the top down. Deirdre can't see the list.
Right, so I think if we go down the list for each agency and I call out each agency and then if you'd like to report which selections that you've been made.
Okay, maybe if you guys want to look at the list and see whether you want to make changes ahead.
One thing is, I'm on the Beautification Advisory. That actually doesn't meet at the PBNR conference room. They're usually in the police station. I mean, it's not that big a deal, but I just wanted to.
I'll make that update to the location.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did take you off there instead. Did you?
Well, when I said I would do airport roundtable,
Okay.
you took me off because they meet at the same time.
They coincide. Okay, I did work on one or two people. Sue Beckmeyer?
I will be happy to take beautification so that you can go to our airport roundtable, Michael, just saying.
Figured that, yeah.
I think these are generally acceptable. I did have a question about, well, I don't want to get too far down the road because Deirdre can't see it.
No, I can't see anything.
I know.
Who's listed at, can we just go down the list? Who's
You know what,
listed
can
as,
someone take a picture of it
who's
with
on the
their iPad and send it to her?
I have it in front of me, the list.
That's a good idea.
Oh, would I take a picture and text you a picture of it?
Yeah.
Well, you can do that, but I have the old list. That's what I have in front of me.
Okay, hold on one
So
second.
email it. Then you've got the Mac, did you say?
She has the old one. She needs the
Oh, yeah, you need the scribbled on one that Sue
scribbled
worked on.
one, right. Oh, no way. if I give you the second rows with the people's names on them, will you be able to?
Zoom out. Just stand up and take a picture of it.
Mayor Vaterlos, once
Yes.
Councilmember Martin has the copy, the electronic copy, it would be good for the public's information
go-
to go
definitely.
down the list.
Okay, so why don't we just call out line by line, and then Deirdre can hear who's on the scribbled copy now, and then if she has a comment or, interest or whatever, she can let us know.
Did you send it to her?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know whether she can read it.
Can you read it, Deirdre?
Did you text it or did you send an email?
I sent it by text.
Okay, I didn't get it yet.
Violations of the Brown Act is that? He goes,
She's
Yep, there it is. Okay. All right, great. I can hear you.
Okay, so you can kind of see the scribbled names on there?
Yep. Yep.
And I guess we'll go over it the way that we have it on this list. Sarah, do you want it to read?
I'll
from
go
the-
ahead and I'll read down the list, and then if you
From the
would like to...
scribbled list?
I don't have that copy, so if I read...
I have two.
Here.
I think I took yours, Mike.
no, I have one.
Okay, sorry.
I made a lot of copies.
So for the ABAG General Assembly delegate, I have Council Representative Vaterlaus with Council Alternate
No one.
none.
Wait, I'm sorry. Sarah, I can't hear you as well as I can hear Sue.
Okay.
Do you want me to read it?
That'll be
Okay,
awesome.
go ahead. Sue.
Okay. For the ABAG General Assembly Delegate, Vaterlos with no alternate because no one requested that. Airport Roundtable, Mike O'Neill with Deirdre as the alternate. What?
Okay. Yeah, so who's, okay, because that's on the same night as beautification.
Oh,
So,
Okay.
Sue Beckmeyer, you wanted to do beautification?
Yes, ma'am.
okay.
So you want to move into the main role, and I'll do alternate for that, in case?
Okay, that works for me.
There is the Brisbane Subcommittee for the airport, and it was Sue Degree and I. So I'm willing to do it again if we want a second council person on there. Brisbane has two, and then Millbrae started showing up, but there's only one of Millbrae. So if we want to just leave it with just me, that's fine, or if we want two, that's fine too. And that, I can't give you meeting dates because we've met once and we're going to be restarting them, because in November, I was up for election and Sue was going to be gone, so we didn't meet, and then holidays and
You
stuff.
could put me as an alternate for that one.
Alternate, well,
Or you
two of
both
us
have
went to
go?
the meeting.
Oh, okay.
They feed us, so.
Okay.
So Deirdre, would you prefer beautification?
Well, I prefer airport, but that's okay. I can take beautification.
It's not an issue then.
That's okay. I'll take beautification.
Okay.
I don't understand.
Yeah, I think we need to go back.
Let's go backwards.
Yeah.
Mike said that two people could go to the airport roundtable. Deirdre,
No, two people to the Brisbane Subcommittee.
that's not even on here.
Right,
Yeah.
it's not even on there.
Okay.
Okay, never mind.
So, so for the airport roundtable, we have O'Neill and Beckmeyer as alternates, and beautification, Martin and Beckmeyer.
I have O'Neill and Martin as Airport Roundtable and Beautification, Beckmeyer and Martin as alternate. Isn't that what you said, Deirdre?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay.
I had it the way
Okay.
Sue did, yeah.
Okay.
So for Airport Roundtable, we have O'Neill as the representative and Martin as the alternate.
Yes.
And then for Brisbane Airport Subcommittee,
O'Neill and Beer.
O'Neill and Beer,
No alternate.
no alternate. Beautification Advisory Committee, we've got Beckmeyer and alternate Martin.
Yes. And Seacag, Vaterlos, and Martin. Colma Creek Flood Control, no one, so I'll take that with no alternate.
If you want me to be the alternate, I'll do that.
Okay,
We don't even know when that meets.
I know. I've never even heard of that committee.
Sud Agree was the only one that's ever been to it, I know. And I don't think they met that often.
Okay, Economic Development, 2 people, Beckmeyer and O'Neill. So if there are 2 people, I didn't put in an alternate. Is that okay?
Does that make sense? That makes sense.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Emergency Preparedness, Deirdre Martin, Mary Beer as the alternate.
And so I have one comment about that. It's the same time as the Open Space Advisory Committee, and it's also Deirdre and I, so maybe if we could rotate back and forth so we can make sure to be
Do you
there.
want to take emergency prep as the main liaison, and I'll take OSPAC as the main, you take emergency prep, I'll be your alternate, and then we'll do the reverse on OSPAC?
Yes.
Okay, so for emergency preparedness, it is Beer as the main person and Martin is the alternate. So let me change this other one down here. Okay. Emergency Services Council, I moved over from alternate to the main person, and I have Mary as the alternate. I'm the Fog Fest liaison, although I never met anybody. Housing Endowment and Regional Trust, Mary Beer, and I'm the alternate. Housing Our People Effectively, Hope, Mary Beer, and I'm the alternate. The Joint School District Articulation Committee, O'Neill and Beer. 2 people meet there. I don't think we need an alternate, but.
No, you don't.
Okay, Library Advisory Committee, Beckmeyer. Do we need 2 people for that?
We have 2 council liaisons for that and no alternate.
Okay, do you want to go to
We
that?
have to have 2 and an alternate?
2 with no alternate.
Oh, why is that? Is that in the committee rules? I'm just curious. Seems odd.
Tina says yes.
Yes.
We really shouldn't have
In
3.
the committee rules that we have to have 2 main council representatives.
You do not need to have, this is all up to the desire of the council, number 1. I don't believe there are any rules that directly relate to most of these committee liaisons. But I would also say that, having one single council member and an alternate is the most that you'd want to have for any committee or liaison.
Okay, there's several.
You'd never want to have 2 plus an alternate.
Okay, so on the committees that have 2, like the Fire JPA, 2 people from each city go. So then we would have 2 people on that, but no alternate?
Correct.
And that's the same with library?
Yes.
So Sue Beckmeyer and who else?
Me.
You want to do that? Okay. So that library advisory would be Beckmeyer and Beer. And Fire JPA are Beckmeyer and O'Neill. Neither of those have alternates. Open Space, we switched this one, so Deirdre Martin and then Mary Beer is the alternate. Pacifica TV, O'Neill, and I'll be the alternate. Beach Coalition is Deirdre Martin. Do we need an alternate, Deirdre?
I don't think so.
I don't either. And the Resource Center, Martin's going to stay, and Mary would want it to be on that too, so the alternate for that.
Mary, do you want to be the main on that?
I do.
Oh, okay.
I seem to have a conflict on that night for some reason.
Okay, so Mary Beer is the Resource Center, and Martin is the alternate. Pacifica School Volunteers, Mary Beer, and Mike O'Neill's the alternate. Peninsula Clean Energy, Martin is the main person, and you said they wanted to be on that. Mary, do you want?
Mary.
I'm sorry, I have you on a lot of things, though.
I noticed that.
So originally, I made them so that it was fairly even numbers. But now they've changed.
Well, I think it's important to look at alternates because it's right, if you have to go, because the main can't make it. It's not that you're going together.
Oh, yeah, I can be the alternate, that's fine.
Okay. So Peninsula Congestion Relief Alliance. Mike?
Sure.
The Advanced Life Support, Sue. Beckmeyer. The Library, JPA, and why didn't I fill this one in?
Because you thought we were going to fight about it, and so we were going to have a chat.
Okay, so you guys are going to chat about that, so what do you want to do?
What do you want to do, Mike?
Well, I'll just stay as the permanent, and she can be the alternate, and
Okay.
That works.
that works.
Well, that was
Okay.
easy. That wasn't a big fight.
Yeah.
And
They have good donuts.
let me see this for a second.
They feed me, I come.
You're so funny.
And the Transportation Authority has no one because that must be assigned by the Transportation Authority. The local agency formation is Mike O'Neill. These are appointed positions. CCAG, Bike and Pedestrian, we will have no representative because Deirdre cannot do that one.
I'll do it if I
You
can.
can.
Well,
You have
you
to
can apply for it.
Oh,
You
that's
have
an
to apply. These are committees that you apply
Oh.
and get appointed.
Deirdre, you're not
you should
applying
apply
again?
for it.
What?
I was saying, and you should apply for it. I can talk to you about that separately if you want.
Oh, okay.
Okay, because that's an overlap for her. So the CCAG Congestion Management, Mike O'Neill is still on it. John Keener's off, so if someone wants to apply for that position.
They have to be elected in CCAG.
I know, you
Or not
apply,
C- oh.
but you apply for them through
Oh, that's
the organizations. I'm on CCAG Legislative, and I'm on CCAG Water, and Mike is the San Mateo County Domestic Violence Council.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it says.
Says it right there, O'Neill.
And I am the Vice Chair of Council of Cities. So, because it looked like I didn't take very many of the other committees, but I have several down below. So if I give you this sheet, will it make sense? Hopefully.
Yes.
Well, you're going to need to make
We're
a
going
motion.
to okay.
Motion to support the mayor's recommendations for appointments to all of these committee assignments, committee and liaison assignments.
Can I make that motion?
Yes.
I move to support the mayor's recommendations for these committee assignments,
Just reflective.
as just reflected in our conversation.
I'll second that.
Okay, a roll call vote.
Roll call vote. Councilmember O'Neill,
Yes.
Councilmember Beer,
Yes.
Councilmember Beckmeyer,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martin,
Yes.
Mayor Vaterlaus.
Yes.
That motion passes 5-0 for item number 8, council liaison and committee assignments.
10:35.
And I'd like to adjourn this meeting in honor of Jean Fasser. Jean Fasser was Pacifica's first mayor. She was obviously the first woman mayor. I would have brought a sheet about information about her, but she did a lot for this city in the organization of the city itself and combining the districts.
I got some. She actually was the one and only Pacifican ever elected to the Board of Supervisors, and I believe she was the first woman elected to the Board of Supervisors of San Mateo County. She also did serve on a state beautification commission appointed by one of the governors. And she was her family was the owners of the house at Lindemar, before they did at Lindemar Beach, before they did the seawall and all the work there. She had the house, the Fassler house there. And it's about a little bit north of Taco Bell, I think, or it might be where Taco Bell is. So she was a big part of Pacifica history, and a lot of people knew her. I personally never met her, but I drive down the street named after her every day. So she rests in peace.
She was very inspirational. One of the things that I noted in reading about her was that she came up through the ranks with her service to the community as PTO, PTA, and all of that. So I think that we're in good stead, Mary, with carrying on.
And she was 99 years old.
Really,
So
yeah.
that's a
Almost
pretty
got
good
it.
feat in itself.
Almost got a Christmas card from Trump.
We will adjourn the meeting in honor of former Mayor Jean Fasler. The meeting. Okay.
The mayor.
Thank you.